when tomorrow no longer exists. Lena Hart knew tonight she would die. Blood from her shattered arm dripped onto the cold tile floor, and her husband's drunken voice roared outside the bathroom door. But in her torn jeans pocket was something he didn't know about, a business card she'd hidden for 6 months. Roman Vescari, the name everyone in this city whispered with fear. Her trembling fingers dialed the number as wood splintered behind her. One call. One chance. One man who could either save her or destroy what little remained of her broken life. If you want to see how far this story can go, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city below. Now let's begin. The fluorescent lights of Sal's diner flickered overhead, casting sick yellow shadows across the cracked linoleum floor. Lena Hart moved between tables like a ghost, her body operating on autopilot while her mind stayed somewhere far away, somewhere safer, though she couldn't remember where that place was anymore. "Coffee's cold," a trucker grunted, pushing his cup toward her without looking up. "I'll get you fresh," Lena said quietly, her voice barely audible over the clatter of dishes and the hiss of the grill. She reached for the cup and pain shot through her ribs, the ones Mark had kicked 3 days ago. She didn't flinch. She'd learned not to. Behind the counter, Sal watched her with the kind of pity that made Lena's skin crawl. He knew. Everyone knew. In a neighborhood like this, violence wasn't a secret. It was just part of the scenery, like graffiti or broken streetlights. "You okay, sweetheart?" Sal asked when she brought the pot back. "Fine," Lena lied, pouring coffee with steady hands. The wedding ring on her finger caught the light, a thin gold band that had felt like a promise once. Now it was just a collar. The dinner rush had ended an hour ago, leaving only the regulars. Jerry the alcoholic who nursed the same beer all night, 2 teenagers sharing fries in the corner booth, and a man Lena had never seen before. He sat alone at table 7, dressed too well for this place. Dark suit, no tie. Black hair touched with gray at the temples. He hadn't ordered anything, hadn't even looked at the menu. He just sat there, watching. Not watching the diner. Watching her. Lena felt it like static electricity across her skin. She'd developed an instinct for danger over the years, knew the difference between a look and a threat. This man's gaze was different. Calculated. Patient. "You gonna take his order or just stare?" Sal called out. Lena grabbed her notepad and approached table 7, keeping her eyes down. "What can I get you?" "Coffee," the man said. His voice was low, controlled. "Black." She poured without meeting his eyes, but she could feel him studying her. The bruise on her cheekbone that makeup couldn't quite cover. The way she held her left arm slightly away from her body, protecting the ribs underneath. "You work here long?" he asked. 3 years. Lena turned to leave. "You're careful," he said, stopping her. "The way you move, the way you watch the door. Someone hurt you. You don't just survive it. You study it, learn the patterns." Lena's blood went cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." The man pulled something from his jacket, a business card, cream-colored with black lettering. He set it on the table between them. "My name is Roman Vescari. If you ever need help, call that number." Lena stared at the card like it was a live grenade. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Roman Vescari controlled half the criminal operations in 3 states: drugs, gambling, protection rackets. The kind of man regular people never got close to unless they were buying or dying. "I don't need help," she whispered. "Not yet." Roman stood, leaving a $100 bill next to his untouched coffee. "But you will. And when you do, call." He walked out of the diner without looking back, and Lena stood frozen, staring at the card. Her first instinct was to throw it away. Her second was to memorize the number and burn it. Instead, she slipped it into her pocket and tried to forget it existed. She failed. Mark was already drunk when Lena got home at midnight. She could hear him from the parking lot, his voice booming through their 3rd-floor apartment window, arguing with the TV like it could answer back. Lena sat in her 15-year-old Honda for 5 full minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to find the courage to walk through that door. Some nights she couldn't do it. Some nights she drove around until dawn, sleeping in parking lots, telling Mark she'd picked up a double shift. But tonight she was too tired to run. The apartment smelled like cigarettes and spilled beer. Mark sprawled on the couch in his stained undershirt, a basketball game playing on the screen. 3 empty bottles sat on the coffee table. That meant he was past mean drunk and heading toward violent drunk. "Where the hell you been?" he slurred, not looking at her. "Work. I told you this morning." "Don't lie to me." Mark lurched to his feet, and Lena automatically stepped back, measuring the distance to the bedroom door. "You think I don't know what you're doing? Dressed like that, staying out late?" Lena looked down at her grease-stained diner uniform and torn sneakers. "Mark, I smell like French fries." "You smell like another man." He crossed the room faster than she expected, grabbing her wrist hard enough to leave marks. "Who is he? That wetback cook? That old bastard Sal?" "There's no one," Lena said, keeping her voice calm even as her pulse hammered. "I'm just trying to work. We need the money." The slap came out of nowhere, snapping her head sideways. Lena tasted blood. "We need money because you're worthless," Mark screamed. "Can't even keep a decent job. Can't give me kids. Can't do anything right." Lena backed toward the bedroom, hands raised. "You're drunk. Let's just go to sleep. I'm drunk because of you. Because I married a broken, useless—" She ran. Made it 3 steps before Mark caught her by the hair, dragging her backward. Lena screamed, clawing at his hands, but he was twice her size and fueled by liquor and rage. "You don't walk away from me," Mark snarled, slamming her against the wall. "You don't walk away. You don't talk back. You don't do anything unless I say so. You understand?" Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face, hating herself for crying, hating him more. "Say it," Mark demanded. "I understand." "Louder." "I understand." He let her go, and Lena collapsed to the floor, gasping. Mark stood over her for a moment, breathing hard, then grabbed his keys off the counter. "I'm going out," he said, suddenly calm, like nothing had happened. "Clean this place up. It's a pigsty." The door slammed. Lena stayed on the floor until she heard his truck roar out of the parking lot, then dragged herself to the bathroom. Her reflection looked like a stranger, swollen lip, handprint on her cheek, eyes hollow with exhaustion. The business card was still in her pocket. She took it out, read the number again. Roman Vescari. A crime boss. A killer, probably. Definitely not someone who helped battered waitresses out of the goodness of his heart. But he'd known. Somehow, he'd looked at her and seen everything. Lena hid the card inside an old tampon box under the sink, the one place Mark would never look, and washed the blood off her face. 6 months passed. 6 months of walking on eggshells, of timing her breathing to Mark's moods, of memorizing which words would set him off and which ones might buy her an hour of peace. 6 months of wearing long sleeves in summer and lying to Sal about why she couldn't work certain shifts. 6 months of surviving. The card stayed hidden under the sink, and Lena told herself she'd never use it. This was her life. Her choice. She'd married Mark, and marriage meant staying, meant fixing things, meant trying harder. Except Mark didn't want things fixed. He wanted something to break. It started over burnt toast. Lena had been exhausted from a double shift, operating on 3 hours of sleep. She'd put the bread in the toaster and then sat down for just a second, just to rest her eyes, and when the smoke alarm went off, Mark was already in the kitchen, staring at the charred bread like she'd committed murder. "What the hell is this?" he asked quietly. Quiet was worse than yelling. Quiet meant he was in control. "I'm sorry," Lena said, moving toward the toaster. "I'll make more." "You're sorry." Mark unplugged the toaster, held it up. "You're always sorry. Sorry you can't cook. Sorry you can't clean. Sorry you're such a useless piece of—" He threw the toaster at her head. Lena ducked, but not fast enough. Metal cracked against her temple, and pain exploded white-hot behind her eyes. She hit the floor hard, and then Mark was on her, fists flying, screaming words that blurred together into one continuous roar of hate. She tried to protect her face, felt something in her arms snap like dry wood. The pain was so intense she couldn't even scream. Mark stopped, breathing hard, looking down at her arm bent at an unnatural angle. For 1 second, Lena saw fear in his eyes, the realization that he'd gone too far, that this injury couldn't be hidden or explained away. Then the fear turned to rage. "Look what you made me do!" He grabbed her broken arm, and Lena did scream then, a sound she didn't recognize as human. "This is your fault. You're clumsy, you fell, I need a hospital," Lena gasped. "You're not going anywhere." Mark dragged her toward the bedroom, her arms screaming agony with every movement. "You're going to stay here until that heals, and you're going to tell everyone you fell down the stairs. You understand?" He threw her into the bathroom and locked the door from the outside. Lana lay on the cold tile, cradling her shattered arm, listening to Mark's footsteps pace the apartment. He was panicking, trying to figure out how to fix this, how to keep her quiet. She knew what came next. She'd heard the stories, women who ended up in hospitals with injuries that couldn't be explained. Women who never made it to hospitals at all. Tonight was the night Mark decided whether to call an ambulance or make her disappear. Lena's vision swam with pain and shock, but her mind was suddenly terribly clear. The card. She'd hidden it in here months ago. If it was still there, she dragged herself to the sink with her good arm, yanked open the cabinet, boxes of tampons, bottles of shampoo, and there, the old box pushed to the back. The card was still inside. Lena's hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. Blood from her arm smeared across the cream-colored paper, but the number was still legible. She pulled her phone from her pocket, screen cracked but functional, and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. It rang once, twice. Outside the door, Mark's footsteps stopped. "Lena? You better not be calling anyone." "Lena!" The phone rang a third time, then a voice answered. "Who is this?" "Not Roman. Someone else." Calm, professional. "My name is Lena Hart," she whispered. "Roman Vescari gave me this number. I need—" The bathroom door rattled violently. "Open this door right now." "Please," Lena begged into the phone. "Please help me." "Where are you?" the voice asked. Lena gave her address, her words tumbling over each other. "He's going to kill me. My husband. He broke my arm, and he's going to—" The door splintered. Mark had grabbed something heavy, the baseball bat he kept by the bed. "Help is coming," the voice said. "Stay on the line. Stay quiet. We're already moving." The door cracked again. Mark's face appeared through the gap, red and twisted with fury. "Who are you talking to?" Lena backed into the corner, phone pressed to her ear, broken arm held against her chest. She had nowhere left to go, nothing left to do but wait and pray that Roman Vescari's word meant something. The door exploded inward. Mark stepped through, bat raised, and Lena closed her eyes. Then she heard something that changed everything. Sirens. Multiple cars coming fast. Mark froze. "What did you do?" The sirens weren't police. They didn't have that distinctive wail. These were different. Closer. Angrier. Tires screamed outside. Car doors slammed. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. "What did you do?" Mark screamed again, advancing on her with the bat. The apartment door crashed open. Men poured into the space. Big men in dark suits, moving with military precision. They filled the small apartment in seconds, and Mark spun around, bat raised, suddenly looking very small and very stupid. "Who the hell?" The last man through the door was Roman Vescari. He looked exactly as he had 6 months ago, calm, controlled, dressed like he was attending a business meeting instead of a rescue operation. His eyes swept the apartment, taking in the broken furniture, the blood on the floor, then landed on Mark with an expression that could freeze fire. "Put down the bat," Roman said quietly. "This is my house," Mark blustered, but his voice cracked. "You got no right—" "The bat. Down. Now." Something in Roman's tone made Mark obey. The bat clattered to the floor, and 2 of Roman's men moved in immediately, grabbing Mark's arms and forcing him to his knees. Roman walked past him without a glance, stepping into the bathroom where Lena still huddled in the corner. He crouched down to her level, careful not to crowd her, his dark eyes scanning her injuries with a clinical precision that somehow felt gentle. "Lena," he said, "I need you to trust me for the next 5 minutes. Can you do that?" She nodded, unable to speak. "Good. I'm going to have my doctor look at your arm. It's broken, and it needs to be set properly. This will hurt, but it has to be done. Then we're taking you somewhere safe. Your husband will not follow. Do you understand?" "Yes," Lena whispered. Roman stood and gestured to someone in the hallway. An older man with a medical bag entered, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. He gave Lena a kind smile. "I'm Dr. Chen. I'm going to examine your arm, all right?" The examination was excruciating. Dr. Chen confirmed the radius and ulna were both fractured, probably needed surgery. He gave her something for the pain, a pill that dissolved under her tongue. and within minutes, the agony dulled to a manageable throb. In the living room, Mark was crying. "You don't understand," he blubbered. "She's my wife. This is between us. You can't just—" "I can do anything I want," Roman said, his voice never rising above conversational. "You just haven't realized that yet." "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who keeps his promises." Roman pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. "Lena Hart called me 6 months ago." "No, she didn't. She took my card 6 months ago, and she held on to it through every beating, every threat, every moment you made her feel worthless. She held on to it because somewhere deep down, she knew this day was coming. She knew you'd push too far, and she knew I'd answer when she called." "You're kidnapping her," Mark shouted. "I'll call the cops. You'll do nothing." Roman crouched down to Mark's level, the way he had with Lena, but there was no gentleness in it now. "Because if you make one call, file one report, or say one word about this to anyone, I will make sure everyone in the city knows what you are. The photos of your wife's injuries, the hospital records you prevented, the police reports that were filed and mysteriously withdrawn, every instance of violence documented and ignored. That's not— you can't— I can, and I will, or—" Roman stood, brushing imaginary dust off his suit. "You can sign the papers my lawyer brings you tomorrow, agreeing to an immediate divorce with no contest, no claims, no contact. You get to walk away with your life and your kneecaps. That's the deal." Mark's face cycled through rage, fear, and finally, calculation. "What if I don't sign?" Roman smiled, and it was the coldest thing Lena had ever seen. "Then we'll have a different conversation, one you won't enjoy." Dr. Chen finished stabilizing Lena's arm in a temporary splint. "She needs surgery within 24 hours, he told Roman. "I can do it at the estate." "Do it." Roman turned to one of his men. "Bring the car around, and make sure Mr. Hart understands his choices very clearly." They lifted Lena gently, supporting her weight as they guided her toward the door. She passed within 2 feet of Mark, and he looked up at her with eyes full of impotent rage. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You think you can just leave? You're nothing without me. Nothing." Lena stopped. For 6 years, those words had been her reality. For 6 years, she'd believed them. Not anymore. "I'd rather be nothing than be yours," she said. Then she walked out of that apartment and into the night air, breathing like she'd just surfaced from deep water. The car was a black SUV with tinted windows. They settled her in the back seat, Dr. Chen beside her, monitoring her vitals. Roman sat in the front passenger seat, making quiet calls in a language Lena didn't recognize. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere he can't reach you," Roman said without turning around. "Somewhere you can heal." "Why are you doing this?" Now he did turn, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Because 6 months ago, I watched a scared woman serve coffee in a diner and recognized someone who'd learned to make herself invisible to survive. I know that look. I've worn it myself." "You?" Lena almost laughed. "You're Roman Vescari. Now I am. Once I was just Roman, and people like your husband thought they owned me too." He turned back to the windshield. "Nobody should have to live like that. Not then, not now, not ever." The SUV pulled through iron gates into an estate that looked like something from a movie. Sprawling mansion, manicured grounds, security everywhere. But instead of taking her to the main house, they drove to a smaller building that turned out to be a fully equipped medical clinic. Dr. Chen worked quickly, setting up for surgery. "The anesthesia will put you under for a few hours," he explained. "When you wake up, the arm will be properly set and casted. You'll need physical therapy, but you'll heal." Lena nodded, too overwhelmed to process everything. As they prepped her for surgery, Roman appeared in the doorway. "I'll be here when you wake up," he said. "You're safe now, Lena. I promise." It was the second promise he'd made to her, and unlike her wedding vows, Lena believed this one. The anesthesia pulled her under like a warm tide, and for the first time in 6 years, Lena Hart fell asleep without fear. Botet. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the strange sensation of not hurting everywhere. The arm was casted, professional work, not the emergency splint from before. An IV dripped clear fluid into her good arm. The room was clean, quiet, and completely foreign. For a moment, panic seized her. Then she remembered. Roman, the rescue, the surgery, A woman appeared in the doorway, mid-50s, kind face, wearing scrubs. "You're awake. Good. I'm Nina, Dr. Chen's nurse. How do you feel?" "Confused," Lena admitted. "That's the anesthesia. It'll wear off." Nina checked her vitals with practiced efficiency. "The surgery went perfectly. No complications. You'll wear the cast for 6 weeks, then start physical therapy." "Where am I?" "Mr. Vescari's estate, the medical wing. You're in a private recovery room." Nina adjusted the IV. "Are you hungry? Thirsty?" Lena realized she was both. "Yes." "I'll have something brought up. Light foods for now. Your stomach needs to adjust after anesthesia." Nina paused at the door. "Mr. Vescari asked to be notified when you woke. Is it all right if he visits?" The question surprised Lena. In her world, men didn't ask permission. They took. "Yes," she said. Roman arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a tray with soup, crackers, and ginger ale. He looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more human. There were shadows under his eyes, like he hadn't slept. "You stayed here all night?" Lena asked. "I said I would." Roman set the tray on the bedside table. "How's the pain?" "Manageable." Lena struggled to sit up with one arm, and Roman moved to help, then stopped himself. "May I?" he asked, again with the asking. Lena nodded, and he adjusted the bed controls until she was comfortable. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. I don't know how to—" "Don't." Roman pulled up a chair. "You don't owe me anything, Lena. Not gratitude, not debt, not anything. You called, I answered, that's all." "But why?" Lena needed to understand. "You don't know me. Why would you—" "Because I could." Roman's expression hardened. "Because I have power and resources and the ability to help, and I chose to use them for something other than profit. Because women like you shouldn't have to stay with men like him just to survive." "Women like me," Lena repeated. "Survivors," Roman clarified. "People who've learned to endure things that should have broken them." "You're stronger than you know, Lena." She wanted to believe him, but 6 years of Mark's voice in her head made it hard. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you heal. Stay here as long as you need. When you're ready, we'll figure out next steps. New apartment, new job if you want it, legal proceedings if necessary." Roman stood. "But right now, your only job is to rest, eat, get better. Everything else can wait." He turned to leave, and Lena called after him. "Roman?" He paused. "He'll come looking for me. Mark. He won't just let this go." "Let him come," Roman said, and there was something dark in his smile. "I'm counting on it." The first 3 days blurred together in a haze of medication and sleep. Lena woke at odd hours, disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling, the softness of sheets that didn't smell like cigarettes, and desperation. Every time panic clawed at her chest. Where was she? What had happened? Was Mark coming? Nina appeared with water and calm reassurances that slowly rebuilt reality piece by piece. On the 4th day, Lena woke with her mind finally clear. The room was larger than she'd realized. Cream-colored walls, hardwood floors, furniture that looked expensive but not showy. A bathroom with a walk-in shower and grab bars already installed for her casted arm. Windows that overlooked gardens she couldn't have imagined existed in the same city as her old apartment. She made it to the bathroom on shaky legs, caught sight of herself in the mirror, and stopped. The bruises had turned spectacular shades of yellow and purple. Her lip had scabbed over. The cast on her arm was bright white, almost cheerful, completely at odds with how she'd gotten it. But her eyes were what held her attention. They looked different. Still scared, still tired, but something else too. Something that hadn't been there before. A knock on the door made her jump. "It's Nina," the nurse called. "Can I come in?" "Yes." Nina entered with fresh clothes, soft pants with an elastic waist, a button-up shirt that would fit over the cast, undergarments still in their packages. "I guessed your size. If anything doesn't fit, let me know." Lena stared at the pile. "I can't pay for these." "They're not for sale. They're yours." Nina set them on the bed. "Do you need help getting dressed?" Pride made Lena want to say no. Common sense won. "Yes." It took 20 minutes to navigate buttons and fabric with one working arm, but Nina was patient, treating the whole process like it was completely normal to dress a grown woman who couldn't manage a bra clasp. When Lena was finally clothed in something other than a hospital gown, Nina stepped back and smiled. There. Feel more human? A little, Lena admitted. Good, because you have a visitor. Lena's stomach dropped. Mark? No. Nina's expression hardened. That man will never step foot on this property. I meant Mr. Viscari. He's been checking in twice a day, but you've been too out of it to notice. He's waiting downstairs if you're up for company. Lena nodded and Nina led her out of the medical wing into a part of the estate she hadn't seen yet. The main house was exactly what she'd expect from someone like Roman. Elegant without being gaudy. Everything chosen with purpose rather than to impress. They passed through a library, a sitting room, and finally emerged onto a covered patio overlooking the gardens. Roman sat at a wrought iron table, reading something on his phone. He looked up when they approached, and Lena caught something in his expression. Relief, maybe, or concern quickly masked. Lena, you're looking better. I can stand without falling over, so that's progress. She lowered herself into the chair across from him, and Nina disappeared back inside. They sat in silence for a moment. Lena had imagined this conversation a dozen times since waking up, rehearsed questions and gratitude speeches. But now that she was here, words felt insufficient. Roman spoke first. Your husband signed the papers. Lena's breath caught. What? The divorce agreement. He signed yesterday morning. No contest, no claims, no contact. It's done. Roman pulled a folder from beside his chair and slid it across the table. These are your copies. Lena opened the folder with shaking hands. Legal documents, dense with language she didn't fully understand, but certain phrases jumped out. Dissolution of marriage, waiver of spousal support, permanent restraining order. How? She whispered. I had my lawyer visit him. Explained his options very clearly. Roman's expression was neutral, but something in his voice suggested that explanation had been unpleasant. He chose the smart path. Just like that? He just gave up? Men like Mark are cowards at their core. They pick targets who can't fight back. When they meet actual resistance, they fold. Roman leaned forward slightly. He's also facing assault charges. The hospital where Dr. Chen has privileges reported your injuries. The district attorney is very interested. Lena's mind reeled. 6 years. 6 years of hell, and it had taken Roman 4 days to dismantle it completely. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Roman poured water from a pitcher into 2 glasses, handed her one. But you do need to eat something. Nina says you've barely touched food. As if on cue, a woman Lena hadn't met before emerged from the house carrying a tray. She was older than Nina, with gray hair pulled into a bun and eyes that seemed to see everything. This is Maria, Roman said. She runs the household. Maria, this is Lena. Nice to meet you properly, Maria said, setting down plates of scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit. I've been cooking for you all week, but you've been too sleepy to appreciate it. The food smelled incredible. Lena's stomach growled, betraying how hungry she actually was. Eat, Roman said. We can talk after. Lena picked up a fork awkwardly with her non-dominant hand, managed to get eggs to her mouth without dropping them. The first bite tasted like something from a different universe than the diner food she'd lived on for years. This is amazing, she said. Maria beamed. You need meat on your bones. I'll make you my specialty lasagna tomorrow. They ate in comfortable silence, and Lena found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't since when? Before Mark, certainly. Maybe before her parents died. Maybe never. When the plates were cleared, Roman leaned back in his chair. I need to ask you some questions about what you want to do next. I don't know what I want, Lena said honestly. I haven't been allowed to want things for a long time. Then let's start smaller. Do you want to stay here while you heal? I can't impose. It's not an imposition. I have 12 guest rooms and you're using one. The medical staff is already here. You'd be safe, fed, and able to recover without worrying about rent or Mark showing up. Roman's gaze was steady. But if you'd rather go somewhere else, I'll arrange it. This is your choice. Choice. Such a simple word, but it felt revolutionary. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. Maria returned to clear the dishes, then paused. There's someone here to see you, Mr. Viscari. Says it's urgent. Roman's expression didn't change, but Lena felt the temperature drop several degrees. Who? Michael Reeves. Tell him I'm busy. He says it's about the heart situation. Now Roman's jaw tightened. He stood, buttoning his jacket. I'll handle this. Lena, stay here. Maria will keep you company. He disappeared into the house, and Maria settled into his vacated chair with a knowing look. Don't worry about Michael, she said. He's Mr. Vescari's attorney, probably just paperwork. But 10 minutes later, raised voices carried from inside the house, Roman's measured tone clashing with someone else's agitation. Lena couldn't make out words, but the argument was clear. Maria frowned. That's unusual. Mr. Vescari doesn't lose his temper. The voices stopped abruptly. Then Roman emerged with a man in an expensive suit who looked seriously annoyed. This is a mistake, the man, Michael, was saying. You're exposing yourself for no strategic gain. She's a liability. She's a person, Roman said coldly, and this conversation is over. Fine. But when this blows back on you, remember I warned you. Michael stalked toward a car parked in the circular drive, then paused and called back. Her husband's been talking, Roman, to people who listen. Roman's entire body went rigid. What people? The kind who think a crime boss going soft over some random woman is exploitable intelligence. Michael shrugged. Just thought you should know. He drove off, leaving Roman standing in the driveway, hands clenched into fists. Maria stood. I should check on dinner preparations. She left with the kind of tactical retreat that spoke of long experience reading Roman's moods. Lena sat alone, watching Roman struggle to compose himself, and finally said, I'm causing you problems. No. Roman turned to face her. You're not. Michael is being paranoid, and Mark is being stupid. Neither is your fault. But he's right, isn't he? Me being here makes you look weak. To idiots, maybe. Roman returned to the table, but he didn't sit. In my world, perception matters. People need to believe I'm ruthless, untouchable, motivated only by profit and power. And most of the time, they're right to believe it. But every once in a while, I choose to be something else, and I don't give a damn who has opinions about that. Why me, though? Lena needed to understand. You said you recognize something, but there must be hundreds of women in situations like mine. Why did you give me that card? Roman was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was different, less controlled, more raw. When I was 14, I watched my father beat my mother so badly she couldn't stand. I was small for my age, useless, couldn't do anything but hide and listen to her scream. She died 3 months later. Official cause was a heart attack, but we both know what really killed her. He met Lena's eyes. I swore that if I ever had power, I'd use it to make sure no one else had to hide and listen. So when I see someone who has that same look, the one that says they're counting exits and measuring distances and trying to disappear, I give them a card. Most people never call. You did. Was itiquette separam. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. I'm sorry about your mother. Don't be sorry. Just get better. Live. Be free. That's the only thing that matters. A phone buzzed. Roman checked it, and his expression shifted to something darker. What is it? Lena asked. Mark's at a bar downtown, drunk, telling anyone who'll listen that I kidnapped his wife, claiming he's going to get her back, get revenge, make me pay. Roman's smile was sharp and humorless. He's trying to make himself look tough. It's pathetic. He's also dangerous when he drinks. Not anymore. He just doesn't know it yet. Roman made a call, spoke quietly in that other language again, then hung up. Some of my people will keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. What if he does? Then I'll handle it. Roman's tone left no room for argument. You're under my protection now, Lena. That's not just words. Anyone who tries to hurt you answers to me. The certainty in his voice should have been frightening, this casual discussion of violence and surveillance. Instead, Lena felt something she barely recognized, safety. Over the next week, Lena fell into a routine that felt surreal in its normalcy. Nina checked her vitals every morning. Maria brought meals 3 times a day, each one a small masterpiece. Dr. Chen visited twice to examine the arm and pronounced it healing perfectly. And Roman stopped by every evening, usually around sunset, to talk. At first, the conversations were practical. Where did Lena want to live when she left? Did she want to press charges against Mark, or let the district attorney handle it? Did she need anything? Clothes, books, toiletries? But gradually, the talk shifted to other things. Roman asked about her life before Mark, and Lena found herself describing parents who'd died in a car accident when she was 22, leaving her alone and grieving and vulnerable to the first man who'd offered stability. She talked about dropping out of community college to work full-time, about dreams of becoming a teacher that had faded into memories. In return, Roman talked about building his organization from nothing, about the fine line between protection and extortion, about being feared and respected but never quite trusted. He was surprisingly honest about the ugliness of his work, never trying to romanticize or justify it. "I'm not a good man," he said one evening. "I've done things that would horrify you, hurt people who probably deserved it, and some who didn't. Built an empire on fear and leverage and calculated violence." "Then why help me?" Lena asked. "Because I can be a bad man and still do some good. The two aren't mutually exclusive." Roman stared out at the darkening gardens. "Most people are more complicated than good or bad anyway. They're just trying to survive and maybe leave things slightly better than they found them." "Is that what you're trying to do? Leave things better?" "I don't know yet. Ask me when I'm dead." On the 8th day, Lena woke to shouting. She bolted upright, heart hammering, transported instantly back to the apartment and Mark's rage. It took several seconds to remember where she was, to recognize that the voices weren't coming from inside the estate, but from somewhere beyond the gates. Nina appeared in the doorway, her usual calm replaced by tension. "Stay in your room. Lock the door." "What's happening?" "Your husband is outside the gates with reporters, making a scene." Nina's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Mr. Vescari is handling it." Lena's stomach twisted. "I need to see." "That's not a good idea. I need to see." Lena was already moving toward the window that overlooked the front drive. Nina sighed but didn't stop her. From the second-floor vantage point, Lena could see the estate's main gates and the crowd gathered outside. Mark stood at the center, looking worse than she'd ever seen him, unshaven, disheveled, eyes wild. Around him clustered people with cameras and microphones, and he was playing to them like an actor on stage. "She's in there!" Mark shouted, pointing at the estate. "My wife. He's holding her prisoner. Someone needs to do something." A reporter thrust a microphone forward. "Mr. Hart, you're claiming Roman Vescari kidnapped your wife?" "I'm saying she called me terrified, saying he threatened her, and now I can't reach her. She's being held against her will by a known criminal, and the police won't do anything because they're afraid of him." Lena felt sick. Mark was good at this, at twisting reality until he was the victim, until his violence became concern and his abuse became love. The gates opened and Roman walked out. He moved with absolute confidence, flanked by two of his men but clearly not needing their protection. The reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, questions overlapping. Roman ignored them all, walking straight to Mark. "You're making a scene," Roman said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "Where's my wife?" Mark demanded. "She's not your wife anymore. The divorce was finalized yesterday. You signed the papers." "Under duress, you threatened me." "I offered you choices. You made one. Now you're embarrassing yourself." Roman's tone was almost bored. "Go home, Mark, while you still can." "Is that a threat?" Mark turned to the cameras. "You all heard that. He's threatening me." "It's advice." Roman pulled out his phone, scrolled to something, then held it up so the nearest camera could see. "This is a text message Mark sent his wife 3 weeks ago. I'm not going to read it out loud because there are minors present, but it details quite explicitly how he planned to hurt her if she ever tried to leave." Mark's face went pale. "That's private." "This is a police report from 2 years ago, filed by a neighbor who heard screaming. No charges were filed because the victim, your wife, was too terrified to testify." Roman swiped to another image. "And this is a hospital record from 18 months ago, showing injuries consistent with domestic violence. The attending physician noted suspected abuse, but the patient declined to file a report." "You can't just... Those are confidential." "They were. Now they're evidence. The district attorney has copies of everything, along with testimony from neighbors, co-workers, and the doctor who treated your wife's broken arm." Roman lowered the phone. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. The restraining order is in effect, which means you need to stay at least 500 feet from Lena at all times. If you violate it, you'll be arrested. If you continue this circus, I'll make sure every news outlet in the city, knows exactly what kind of man you are.
She's lying, Mark's voice cracked. Whatever she told you, she's lying. The x-rays don't lie. The bruises don't lie. The medical records don't lie. Roman stepped closer, and even from a distance, Lena could see Mark flinch. You're a coward who hits women because it makes you feel strong, and now everyone knows it. One of the reporters called out, Mr. Vescari, why are you involved in a domestic dispute? Roman turned to address the cameras directly. Because I was asked for help, and I had the resources to provide it. If that makes me a villain in your story, I can live with that. He looked back at Mark. Last warning, leave, or I'll have you removed. Mark looked around at the cameras, at the reporters who were no longer sympathetic but suspicious, at Roman's men who were moving closer. Whatever he saw made him realize he'd already lost. This isn't over, Mark spat. Yes, Roman said quietly. It is. Mark stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet in his rush to get to his truck. He burned rubber leaving, and the reporters turned their attention back to Roman. Mr. Vescari, are you saying you rescued a woman from domestic violence? I'm saying I helped someone who asked for help, that's all. Is she staying at your estate? She's recovering from injuries in a safe location. Anything else is her private business. Are you in a relationship with her? Roman's expression could have frozen gasoline. Next person who asks an invasive question gets permanently banned from any statement I ever give. This is about providing safety to someone who needed it, not entertainment for your viewers. He walked back through the gates, which closed behind him with an authoritative clang. The reporters lingered for a few minutes, then gradually dispersed when it became clear there'd be no more drama. Lena stepped back from the window, shaking. Nina touched her shoulder gently. You okay? He destroyed him, Lena whispered. In front of everyone, just destroyed him. Mark destroyed himself, Nina said. Mr. Vescari just made sure everyone could see it. 20 minutes later, Roman knocked on Lena's door. She opened it to find him looking tired and annoyed. I'm sorry about that, he said. I'd hoped to keep this quiet. You don't need to apologize. I should apologize. This is my mess. Lena, listen to me. Roman's voice was firm, but not harsh. Mark showing up here, making accusations, playing victim for the cameras. That's on him, not you. You didn't ask for any of this, you just asked for help. But now you're in the news. People are going to ask questions. Let them ask. I've been in the news before, and I'll be in it again. This changes nothing about my life. Roman paused. But it might change things for you. Your face wasn't on camera, but your name is out there now. People will know you stayed here. Some will make assumptions. Lena hadn't thought about that. What kind of assumptions? The kind that say a woman can't accept help from a man without something sexual being involved. The kind that reduce you to a scandal instead of a survivor. Roman's jaw tightened. I can have my lawyer issue a statement clarifying that this was purely... No, Lena interrupted. Let them think whatever they want. I'm tired of caring what people think. Roman studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, but if you change your mind, tell me. He turned to leave and Lena called after him. Roman? Thank you for what you said out there, about the evidence and the records. I didn't know you had all that. I've had investigators looking into Mark since the night I brought you here. I needed to know who I was dealing with. Roman's expression was grim. Turns out he's been worse than I thought. The district attorney has enough to put him away for a few years if you're willing to testify. I am, Lena said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. I want to testify. Good. I'll have Michael set it up. Roman paused at the door. You're stronger than you think, Lena. Stronger than Mark ever gave you credit for. After he left, Lena sat on the bed and pulled out her phone, the same cracked screen phone she'd used to call Roman that night. She'd avoided looking at it for days, afraid of what messages might be waiting. Now she opened it. 43 missed calls from Mark, all before the restraining order. Dozens of texts that started with apologies and devolved into threats. Voicemails she deleted without listening to. But there were other messages too. From Sal at the diner, asking if she was okay, saying her job was waiting whenever she was ready. From coworkers expressing concern. From her old college roommate she hadn't talked to in 3 years, who'd somehow heard what happened and wanted to help. People had noticed. People had cared. She'd just been too buried to see it.
Lena deleted Mark's messages one by one, watching his words disappear, taking a small piece of her past with each deletion. When she finished, she felt lighter. That night, she joined Roman for dinner in the main house for the first time. Maria had made the promised lasagna, and it was as spectacular as advertised. They ate at a table that could seat 12 but felt intimate with just the two of them. "I've been thinking about what you asked," Lena said, "about what I want to do next." Roman set down his fork. "And?" "I want to go back to school, finish my degree, maybe become a teacher like I planned before everything got derailed." The words felt strange in her mouth, like speaking a language she'd almost forgotten. "Is that stupid? I'm 30 years old. I'd be starting over." 30 isn't old, and starting over isn't stupid. It's brave. Roman refilled her water glass. "What would you teach?" "Elementary school, I think. 2nd or 3rd grade. That age where kids still think learning is magic." Lena smiled at the thought. "Before everything gets complicated. You'd be good at that." "You don't even know me. I know you've survived things that would have broken most people. I know you're kind despite having every reason to be bitter. I know you still have hope after years of someone trying to beat it out of you." Roman's dark eyes were serious. "Those are the kinds of things that make good teachers." Lena felt heat rise in her cheeks and looked down at her plate. Compliments felt foreign, almost dangerous, like accepting them might jinx everything. They finished dinner talking about practical things. Enrollment deadlines, financial aid, which community colleges had the best education programs. Roman knew more about it than she expected, and when she asked why, he admitted he'd funded scholarships at 3 local schools. "Anonymously," he added. "I don't need my name on buildings, just want kids to have chances I didn't." It was past 10 when Lena finally returned to her room, full of food and tentative hope. She was getting ready for bed when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello?" Heavy breathing on the other end. Then Mark's voice, slurred and vicious. "You think you've won? You think he can protect you forever?" Lena's blood went cold. "How did you get this number? I know people too. Maybe not rich people, not powerful people, but people who owe me favors. People who can get to you when your boyfriend isn't looking." "He's not my boyfriend, and you're violating the restraining order." "I don't give a shit about the restraining order." Mark's shout made her flinch. "You're my wife. You don't get to just leave." "I'm not your wife anymore. You signed the papers." "Because he threatened me. Because he's got lawyers and money, and I had no choice." Mark's breathing was ragged. "But this isn't over, Lena. You're going to pay for humiliating me, for making me look weak, for—" Lena hung up. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. She stood frozen in the middle of the room, waiting for the terror to consume her the way it always had. But it didn't come. Instead, she felt anger. Pure, clean, righteous anger that Mark thought he could still control her through fear, that he thought a phone call would undo everything. She grabbed her phone and walked out of her room, through the quiet halls of the estate, following the sound of voices to Roman's study. The door was ajar, and she could see him inside with 2 of his men reviewing something on a laptop. Lena knocked, and all 3 men looked up. "I need to talk to you," she said. Roman dismissed the others with a gesture and stood. "What happened?" Lena held out her phone, showing the recent call. "Mark just called me. Threatened me. Said he has people who can get to me." Roman's expression went absolutely flat, the kind of calm that was more terrifying than rage. He took the phone, noted the number, then made a call of his own. "I need a trace on this number, and I want to know everyone Mark Hart has talked to in the past 24 hours. I want it in 10 minutes. He hung up and handed Lena back her phone. "Did he say anything specific? Names, locations, plans?" "No, just the usual threats about how I can't escape him and he's going to make me pay." Lena's anger was already fading, replaced by exhaustion. "I'm sorry. I should have just ignored it. You did exactly right. He violated the restraining order, which means he's going back to jail tonight. And if he's stupid enough to have made actual threats, those charges just got more serious. He said he has people. Do you think that's true? Possibly. Mark knows small-time criminals, guys who do enforcement for loan sharks and run cons. Not dangerous in organized crime terms, but dangerous enough to someone without protection." Roman's phone buzzed with an incoming text. He read it, and something dangerous flickered across his face. The call came from a burner phone, but it pinged off a tower near a bar on Fletcher Street. That's where Mark's been drinking for the past 3 hours. What are you going to do? Remind him why making threats was a mistake. Roman grabbed his jacket. Stay here, keep your door locked. I'll be back in an hour. Roman, he stopped at the door. Please don't kill him, Lena said quietly. I don't want his death on my conscience. Roman's smile was sharp and cold. I won't kill him, but he'll wish I had. He left, and Lena stood alone in the study, wondering what she'd just set in motion. Lena didn't go back to her room. She couldn't. The thought of sitting alone while Roman confronted Mark made her feel like a child being protected from adult problems, which was exactly what she was, and exactly what she hated. Instead, she wandered into the library, a 2-story room lined with books that looked actually read rather than bought by the yard for decoration. She ran her fingers along the spines, not really seeing titles, just needing something to occupy her hands. Maria found her there 20 minutes later, curled up in a leather chair with a book she hadn't opened. You should be resting, Maria said, but her tone was gentle. Can't rest. Won't be able to until he gets back. Mr. Vescari can handle himself. He's been doing this a long time. Maria settled into the chair across from her. But you're worried anyway. I'm worried he'll do something he can't take back because of me, that he'll cross a line and it'll be my fault for asking him to help. Lena finally opened the book, some thriller about a detective, and stared at words that refused to form meaning. People keep getting hurt because of my mess. Your mess? Honey, you didn't create this situation. Your ex-husband did. Every choice he made, every time he raised his hand, every threat, that's all on him. Maria leaned forward. And Roman isn't doing this because you asked. He's doing it because it's right. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I called a crime boss to solve my problems with violence. You called someone who had the power to help when no one else would. The police didn't help you. Your neighbors didn't help you. The system that's supposed to protect people like you failed completely. Maria's voice was firm. So you found someone who wouldn't fail. That's survival, not weakness. Lena wanted to believe her. But the guilt sat heavy in her chest, mixing with the fear and exhaustion until she couldn't tell which emotion was which anymore. They sat in silence until headlights swept across the window. Lena jumped up, ignoring the protest from her healing ribs, and hurried to the front entrance. Maria followed at a more measured pace. Roman walked through the door looking exactly as he had when he left, composed, unruffled, not a hair out of place. But there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, something satisfied and dark. Is he dead? Lena asked, hating how her voice shook. No, he's in police custody, being charged with violating a restraining order, making terroristic threats, and possession of a concealed weapon without a permit. Roman stripped off his jacket and handed it to Maria, who disappeared toward the kitchen. He'll be held without bail until his hearing. What happened? I had a conversation with him, explained very clearly why threatening you was the stupidest thing he's ever done. Then I called the police and had him arrested. Roman loosened his tie. The gun was already on him. He was planning to use it. Lena's legs went weak. On me? On whoever got in his way. Mark's not a planner. He's reactive. Gets angry, gets drunk, does stupid things without thinking about consequences. Roman guided her back toward the library, his hand light on her elbow. But he won't be reacting to anything from jail. They sat in the chairs Maria had vacated. Roman poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter, whiskey by the color, and downed half of it in one swallow. You're shaking, Lena observed. Adrenaline. It'll pass. What did you say to him in the conversation? Roman stared into his glass. Do you really want to know? Yes. I told him that every breath he takes from now on is a gift I'm choosing to give him. That if he ever contacts you again, speaks your name, or even thinks too hard in your direction, I'll make him disappear in ways that won't leave enough evidence for a parking ticket. Roman's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. I told him I've buried better men than him for less cause, and that the only reason he's still breathing is because you asked me not to kill him. Lena should have been horrified, should have been afraid of this man who spoke so casually about murder. Instead, she felt something crack open inside her chest. Not fear, but recognition. Did he believe you? He will when he sobers up. Right now he's too drunk and stupid to believe anything. Roman finished his drink. But tomorrow, When he's sitting in a cell and reality sets in, he'll understand exactly how close he came to not existing anymore. I don't know how to feel about that. You don't have to feel anything. You don't have to forgive me for the things I said or the way I said them. You just have to be safe. That's all that matters. Maria returned with a tray, tea for Lena, coffee for Roman, and small sandwiches neither of them had asked for but both needed. Eat, Maria ordered. Both of you. You look like ghosts. They obeyed, and slowly the tension in the room began to ease. Roman's hand stopped shaking. Lena's breathing evened out. The crisis had passed, leaving behind only exhaustion. I need to tell you something, Roman said after they'd finished eating. The police found texts on Mark's phone, conversations with 3 different men about getting his wife back. One of them has a record for assault, another for armed robbery. He really was planning something. Looks that way. The police are bringing them in for questioning, but until we know what they were planning, I want extra security around the estate. Not because I think they'll try anything, they're not that stupid, but because I don't take chances with your safety. How long? Lena asked. How long do I have to live like this? Looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next threat? Until Mark goes to trial and gets sentenced. Until his friends realize that coming after you means coming after me, which is a losing proposition. Until you feel safe enough to breathe without checking exits. Roman's expression softened. I know it's not fair. I know you want this over, but safety takes time. Lena nodded, too tired to argue. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why aren't you married? You're what, 40? 42. And I've never found anyone willing to overlook what I do for a living. Roman smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Most women hear crime boss and either run or see dollar signs. Neither makes for a good relationship. What about someone in your world? Someone who understands? You mean another criminal? Roman considered this. I've tried. But people in my line of work don't trust easily. Every relationship becomes transactional. You're always wondering if they're with you for love or leverage. That sounds lonely. It is, but it's also safe. Can't get hurt if you don't let anyone close. Lena heard the echo of her own survival strategy in his words. Keep everyone at arm's length. Never let them see how much they can hurt you. Stay numb, stay distant, stay alive. That's not living, though, she said quietly. That's just existing. Says the woman who spent 6 years doing exactly that. I know. That's how I recognize it. Lena met his eyes. We're both pretty broken, aren't we? Completely shattered, but we're still here. Roman stood, offering his hand. Come on, it's late, and you need sleep. He walked her back to her room, waited while she unlocked the door, then surprised her by saying, If you need anything tonight, if you can't sleep or you're scared or you just need to know someone's awake, call me. I don't sleep much anyway. Thank you, Roman, for everything. Stop thanking me. I'm not doing anything extraordinary, I'm just being human. After he left, Lena lay in bed staring at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened. Mark was in jail. His friends were being questioned. The immediate threat was contained. So why did she still feel like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop? The answer came 2 days later. Lena was in the garden with Nina, doing the physical therapy exercises Dr. Chen had prescribed for her arm, when Michael Reeves showed up unannounced. She recognized him from the argument with Roman. Expensive suit, irritated expression, briefcase that probably cost more than her old car. I need to speak with you, Michael said without preamble. Alone. Nina frowned. Mr. Vescari didn't mention, I'm his lawyer, not his employee. I don't need his permission to talk to his house guests. Michael's smile was sharp. Though if it makes you comfortable, we can do this in the library with the door open. They settled in the library, Nina hovering protectively nearby. Michael pulled documents from his briefcase and spread them on the coffee table. These are the charges against your ex-husband. Assault, battery, violating a restraining order, terroristic threats, illegal possession of a firearm. He tapped each document. The district attorney is offering a plea deal. Mark pleads guilty to lesser charges, serves 18 months, and you don't have to testify. What if I want to testify? Then you'll be cross-examined by his defense attorney, who will try to make you look like a vindictive ex-wife who seduced a powerful man into destroying her innocent husband. They'll bring up every argument you ever had, every time you went back to him, every bruise you tried to hide. They'll make you relive the worst moments of your life in front of a jury and cameras.
Lena's stomach churned. But he'd get more time, right? If I testify.
Maybe. 5 years instead of 18 months. But there's no guarantee. Juries are unpredictable, especially when the defendant's lawyer is good at playing on sympathy. Michael leaned back. I'm advising you to take the plea deal. Guaranteed conviction, guaranteed jail time, minimal trauma for you. What does Roman think? Roman thinks you should do whatever makes you feel safest, but I think he's letting his personal feelings cloud his judgment. Michael's expression was carefully neutral. He likes you. More than he should. And that makes him vulnerable to people who might exploit that weakness. I'm not exploiting anything. I didn't say you were. But other people see an opportunity. A crime boss going soft over a woman. That's valuable intelligence in our world. So what do you want me to do? Leave? I want you to understand what you're risking by staying here. Not just for yourself, but for Roman. Michael started gathering his documents. He's made enemies over the years, powerful people who'd love nothing more than to find a weakness they can exploit. Right now, you're that weakness. After Michael left, Lena sat in the library feeling like she'd been punched. Every word he'd said was logical, practical, correct. She was a liability. Her presence put Roman at risk. The smart thing would be to take the plea deal, leave the estate, disappear into a normal life. But the thought of leaving made her chest tight with something that wasn't quite panic, but wasn't quite relief either. Roman found her there an hour later, staring at nothing. Michael told me about his visit, Roman said, settling into the chair across from her. I'm sorry, he's overly cautious. He's right, though. I'm making you vulnerable. You're not. My enemies were there before you arrived, and they'll be there after you leave. One person's presence or absence doesn't change that. But if something happened to you because of me, then it would be because of choices I made, not you. Roman's voice was firm. I chose to give you that card. I chose to answer when you called. I chose to bring you here and protect you. Every step has been my decision, made with full knowledge of the risks. Lena twisted the edge of her shirt with her good hand. Michael also told me about the plea deal. 18 months guaranteed versus maybe 5 years if I testify. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to see Mark's face when I tell a jury everything he did. Part of me wants to never think about him again. She looked up at Roman. What would you do? I'd testify. But I'm vindictive and I hold grudges. You're not like that. How do you know? Maybe I am vindictive. Maybe I want him to suffer. Then testify. Make him face what he did. Own your anger. It's allowed. Roman leaned forward. But if you choose the plea deal instead, that's allowed too. There's no wrong answer here, Lena. Only what you can live with. Over the next week, Lena wrestled with the decision. She met with the district attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who explained exactly what trial would entail. She talked to Nina and Maria, both of whom had opinions but respected her right to choose. She even called Sal at the diner, who said he'd testify about the bruises if she needed him to. But the person whose opinion mattered most didn't offer one. Roman listened when she talked through her fears, answered questions about the legal process, but never pushed her toward either choice. You're infuriating, Lena told him one evening over dinner. You have opinions about everything else. Why not this? Because this isn't about me. It's about you reclaiming power over your own story. Roman cut into his steak with precise movements. I can tell you what to eat, where to sleep, how to stay safe, but I can't tell you how to heal. That's yours alone. What if I make the wrong choice? There is no wrong choice, only different paths forward. In the end, what decided it wasn't logic or advice or fear. It was anger. Lena woke up one morning, looked at her healing arm, and remembered Mark's face when he'd broken it. The satisfaction in his eyes. The way he'd blamed her even as he was hurting her. The complete absence of remorse. She called Patricia Chen and said 4 words. I want to testify. The district attorney didn't sound surprised. It'll be hard. His lawyer will try to break you. Let him try. I didn't survive 6 years of Mark to fall apart now. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, Lena worked with Patricia to prepare her testimony, going over questions and answers until she could recite them in her sleep. Roman hired additional security despite her protests, and the estate became a fortress of guards and cameras and locked gates. Mark's lawyer tried every legal maneuver to delay or dismiss, claimed the evidence was obtained illegally, that Lena had been coerced into filing charges, that Roman had unduly influenced the case. Patricia shot down each argument with precision that bordered on artistry. "She's good," Lena observed after watching Patricia destroy the defense's latest motion. "She's the best," Roman agreed. "That's why I recommended her to the district attorney's office." "You recommended her?" "I thought she was assigned. Technically she was. But I may have made a generous donation to the DA's re-election campaign and mentioned that I'd appreciate having someone competent handle your case." Roman's expression was bland. "Completely legal. Just good citizenship." Lena didn't know whether to laugh or be appalled. "You basically bought me the best prosecutor in the city. I ensured you had someone who wouldn't let Mark slip through the cracks. There's a difference." 2 days before the hearing, Mark's lawyer made a last-ditch effort. He showed up at the estate gates with cameras, demanding to speak to Lena, claiming she was being held prisoner and manipulated. Roman had him removed by police for trespassing. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She kept imagining the courtroom, Mark's face, the defense attorney tearing apart her testimony. Every scenario ended with her freezing up, unable to speak, letting Mark win again. At 2 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and wandered downstairs. The house was quiet except for security doing their rounds. She found Roman in his study, working at his computer. "Can't sleep either?" she asked from the doorway. "Never could, even before you arrived." Roman gestured to the leather couch against the wall. "Come in, I'll make tea." He had an electric kettle hidden in a cabinet, along with an array of teas that suggested this was a regular occurrence. He made chamomile for her, black tea for himself, and they sat in comfortable silence while the steam curled between them. "I'm scared," Lena admitted, "about testifying, about facing him." "That's normal. What if I freeze? What if I can't say the words?" "Then Patricia will redirect you, and you'll try again. And if you truly can't do it, we'll accept the plea deal and move forward. The world doesn't end if you're not perfect in that courtroom." "It feels like it will." Roman set down his tea. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" Lena nodded. "When I was 17, I testified against my father. He'd killed my mother and I was the only witness. I was terrified, spent the whole trial convinced I'd mess up, that he'd get acquitted, that he'd come after me." Roman's voice was distant, remembering. "I did mess up. Got confused on dates, mixed up details. The defense attorney made me look like an unreliable teenager with a grudge." "What happened?" "My father was convicted anyway. Because the truth has weight, even when it's spoken imperfectly. The jury saw through the defense's tactics. They believed me despite my mistakes." Roman met her eyes. "You don't have to be perfect, Lena. You just have to be honest. The truth will carry the rest." "Did he die in prison?" "Stabbed in a fight after 2 years. I didn't mourn." Roman picked up his tea again. "I tell you this because I want you to understand. Testifying against someone who hurt you is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It's also one of the most important, not because it guarantees justice, but because it means you refuse to stay silent." "Even if I'm terrified?" "Especially if you're terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being scared and doing it anyway." They finished their tea and sat watching the night through the study windows. Somewhere in the darkness, security walked their routes. Somewhere in the city, Mark sat in a cell. And somewhere inside Lena, something that had been broken was slowly knitting itself back together. The morning of the hearing arrived gray and cold. Lena dressed in clothes Patricia had helped her choose, professional but not expensive, conservative but not dowdy, the kind of outfit that said survivor, not victim. Roman drove her to the courthouse himself, flanked by security vehicles that made the whole thing feel simultaneously safer and more surreal. Reporters had already gathered on the courthouse steps despite the early hour. "Stay close to me," Roman said as they got out of the car. "Don't answer questions. Don't make eye contact. Just walk." They moved through the crowd like a ship cutting through waves, Roman's presence clearing a path. Questions pelted them from all sides. "Ms. Hart, how do you feel?" "Mr. Vescari, are you two in a relationship?" "Is it true you're paying for her legal defense?" But they ignored them all. Inside, Patricia met them in a quiet hallway. "You ready?" "No," Lena said honestly. "But I'm here anyway. That's all I need." Patricia led them to a conference room. "We have 20 minutes before we're called. Let's go over the key points one more time. Roman moved to leave, but Lena caught his hand. Stay. Please. He stayed. Patricia ran through the questions, and Lena answered by rote, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. When they were done, Patricia squeezed her shoulder. You're going to do great. Remember, speak to me, not to him. If you need a break, ask for one. If you don't understand a question, say so. There's no shame in taking your time. A bailiff knocked and announced they were ready. The courtroom was smaller than Lena expected, but packed with people. Reporters, spectators, Mark's family looking hostile in the back rows. And Mark himself, sitting at the defense table in a suit that didn't fit right, looking smaller and older than she remembered. Their eyes met for one brief second, and Lena saw the flash of rage before he looked away. The judge called the hearing to order. Patricia made her opening statement, laying out the charges with clinical precision. The defense attorney countered, painting Mark as a flawed but loving husband whose wife had been seduced and manipulated by a powerful criminal. Then it was Lena's turn. She took the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble. She looked at Patricia and nowhere else. The questions started simple. Name, age, how long she'd been married to Mark. Building a foundation. Then Patricia asked, "Can you describe the nature of your relationship with the defendant?" Lena took a breath. "He hurt me. For 6 years, he hurt me in ways I didn't know a person could be hurt by someone who claimed to love them." "Can you be more specific?" And Lena was. She described the first slap, the excuses she'd made for him, the escalation to punches, kicks, choking, the times he'd locked her in rooms, withheld money, isolated her from friends, the night he'd broken her arm and locked her in the bathroom to die. She spoke for 40 minutes, and her voice never broke. When Patricia sat down, the defense attorney stood. He was younger than Lena expected, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Hart, you testified that my client abused you for 6 years, yet you stayed. Why?" "Because I was afraid of what he'd do if I left." "But you had opportunities to leave. You worked at a diner. You could have asked for help." "I did ask for help. I filed a police report 2 years ago. Nothing came of it." The attorney frowned, clearly not expecting that answer. "You also testified that Mr. Vescari rescued you. Isn't it true that you and Mr. Vescari are romantically involved?" "No." "But you're living at his estate." "I'm recovering from injuries at a safe location he provided. That's not a relationship." "So you expect this court to believe that one of the most powerful men in the city is helping you purely out of the goodness of his heart?" Patricia stood. "Objection. Relevance." "Sustained," the judge said. "Counsel, stick to the charges." The defense attorney pivoted. "Ms. Hart, you testified my client broke your arm, yet you didn't seek medical attention immediately. Why?" "Because he wouldn't let me. He locked me in the bathroom." Convenient that no one witnessed this alleged imprisonment. "The doctor who treated me documented the injuries. The police photographed the broken bathroom door." Lena's voice stayed level. "It's all in evidence." The questioning continued for another hour, the defense attorney trying every angle to discredit her. But Lena had survived 6 years of Mark's psychological warfare. A lawyer's tricks were nothing in comparison. Finally, the judge called a recess. Lena stepped down from the stand, her legs shaky but functional. Roman was waiting in the hallway. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "I didn't fall apart." "You did more than that. You were strong, clear, unshakable." The jury believed every word. Patricia joined them, grinning. "That went better than I hoped. His lawyers got nothing. We'll have a verdict by end of day." They reconvened after lunch. The defense put on their case. Character witnesses who claimed Mark was a good man, co-workers who said Lena had seemed fine at work. But Patricia dismantled each testimony with evidence, photos of bruises, medical records, testimony from Sal about the days Lena couldn't come in because her injuries were too visible. When both sides rested, the judge didn't even send it to a jury. This was a preliminary hearing, not a trial. The question was whether there was enough evidence to proceed. "I've heard enough," the judge said. "There is more than sufficient evidence to bind the defendant over for trial on all charges. Bail is denied given the defendant's history of violence and violation of a restraining order. Trial date is set for 6 weeks from today." The gavel came down, and Mark erupted. "This is bullshit!" he screamed, lunging toward Lena. Bailiffs grabbed him immediately, forcing him back into his seat. "You lying bitch! I'll kill you! Remove the defendant," the judge ordered coldly, "and add threatening a witness to his charges." They dragged Mark out, still screaming threats, and Lena sat frozen in her seat, watching her ex-husband disappear through a side door. It was over. The first battle at least was won. Outside, reporters mobbed them again, but Lena barely registered the questions. She was numb, exhausted, running on fumes. Roman guided her to the car and they drove back to the estate in silence. It wasn't until they were through the gates and safe inside that Lena finally let herself feel everything. She cried for an hour in her room while Nina sat with her, not offering platitudes, just being present. When the tears finally stopped, Lena felt hollow but cleaner, like she'd purged something poisonous. That evening, Roman knocked on her door with takeout from a Thai place that apparently delivered to estates. "Thought you might not feel like formal dining," he said. They ate on the floor of her room like college students, and gradually Lena's appetite returned. The food was good. The company was better. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now Mark sits in jail until trial. His lawyer will probably try to negotiate a better plea deal, but Patricia won't offer one, not after his outburst in court." Roman speared a piece of chicken. "You won, Lena. Today, you won." "It doesn't feel like winning." "It will, eventually." Roman set down his fork. "Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel like you're back at the beginning. That's normal." "You sound like you've done therapy." "Years of it. Still do, actually. Turns out childhood trauma doesn't just disappear because you get rich and powerful." They finished eating and cleaned up the containers. As Roman was leaving, he paused at the door. "I'm proud of you," he said, "for what you did today, for refusing to stay silent." After he left, Lena lay in bed feeling something she hadn't felt in years: hope. The trial came 6 weeks later, and by then Lena had testified 3 more times in pretrial motions. Each time got a little easier. Each time Mark's threats from the defendant's table held a little less power. The last time, when he'd called her a lying whore in front of the judge, Lena had simply stared at him until he looked away first. Small victories, but they added up. The night before the trial, Dr. Chen removed her cast. The arm underneath looked pale and thin, muscles atrophied from disuse, but the bone had healed straight and strong. "You'll need physical therapy for another month," Dr. Chen said, manipulating her wrist through range of motion tests that hurt more than Lena wanted to admit. "But structurally, you're sound. It'll be as good as new." Lena flexed her fingers, watching tendons move under skin. "Will it hurt forever?" "The pain will fade. You might have some stiffness in cold weather, but that's common with any fracture." He met her eyes. "The physical healing is almost done, Lena. The rest takes longer." She knew what he meant. The bruises had faded weeks ago, the split lip healed without a scar, the cracked ribs stopped aching, but she still jumped at loud noises, still checked locks 3 times before bed, still woke up at 3 in the morning convinced Mark was outside her door. "I've been thinking about therapy," Lena said. "The psychological kind." "Good. I can recommend someone excellent. She specializes in trauma recovery." Dr. Chen pulled out his phone and sent her a contact. "Tell her I referred you. First session is usually just talking, figuring out if you're a good fit." That night, Lena called the number and left a message. The therapist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, called back within an hour, and they scheduled an appointment for the week after the trial. "I want to be clear about something," Dr. Mitchell said before they hung up. "Therapy isn't a magic fix. It's work. Hard work. Some sessions you'll feel worse before you feel better. Are you prepared for that?" "I survived 6 years with Mark," Lena said. "I think I can handle some difficult conversations." Dr. Mitchell's laugh was warm. "Fair enough. I'll see you next Tuesday." The trial lasted 4 days. The prosecution methodically built their case: medical records, police reports, photos that made the jury visibly uncomfortable. Sal testified about the bruises and the excuses. Neighbors testified about the screaming. Dr. Chen testified about the severity of the arm fracture and his professional opinion that it was consistent with assault rather than accident. And Lena testified again, this time in front of a full jury and a courtroom packed with spectators. The defense attorney tried the same tactics as before, suggesting she was lying, that she'd manipulated Roman, that she was a vindictive ex-wife seeking revenge. But Patricia had prepared her well, and Lena's answers were calm, factual, devastating. "Did you ever hit the defendant?" the defense attorney asked on cross-examination. "No." "Never pushed him? Threw something at him? Defended yourself physically?" "Once. When he was choking me and I thought I was going to die, I scratched his face trying to get him off me. He broke 2 of my fingers for it." The defense attorney had no follow-up to that. Mark testified in his own defense, which Patricia said was a mistake. He claimed Lena was mentally unstable, that she'd injured herself for attention, that he'd only ever tried to help her. Under cross-examination, he fell apart completely, got angry, contradicted his own testimony, and at one point called Patricia a bitch when she cornered him in a lie. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Mark didn't react at first. Then he turned to stare at Lena with such pure hatred that 2 bailiffs moved closer to him. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, speaking quietly, but Mark shook him off. "You'll regret this," Mark said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Both of you." "Mr. Hart, one more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt," the judge warned. But Mark wasn't done. "You think you've won? You think he'll keep protecting you? He'll get bored, dump you on the street, and then where will you be? You're nothing without a man, Lena. You've always been nothing." The judge's gavel cracked like gunfire. "Bailiff, remove the defendant. Mr. Hart, you've just earned yourself additional charges and guaranteed that I will recommend the maximum sentence." They dragged Mark out, still screaming, and the courtroom erupted in noise. Lena sat frozen, Mark's words echoing in her head. "You're nothing without a man. You've always been nothing." Even as Patricia was hugging her and people were congratulating her and cameras were flashing. Outside, Roman was waiting. He took one look at her face and said, "Let's go." They bypassed the reporters, ignored the questions, and drove back to the estate in silence. Lena stared out the window, watching the city blur past, feeling nothing and everything at once. "He's wrong, you know," Roman said as they pulled through the gates. "What he said? You're not nothing." "How would you know? You've only known me for 2 months. I know you survived 6 years of abuse and still found the strength to escape. I know you testified against him 4 times without breaking. I know you're planning to go back to school and rebuild your life from scratch at 30. Roman parked and turned to face her. "Those aren't the actions of nothing, Lena. Those are the actions of someone extraordinary." Lena wanted to believe him, but Mark's voice was louder, more familiar, reinforced by years of repetition. She went to her room and didn't come out for dinner. Maria brought a tray that went untouched. Nina checked on her and was politely dismissed. Even when Roman knocked and offered to talk, Lena sent him away. She needed to sit with the feeling, this strange combination of victory and emptiness. She'd won. Mark was going to prison. She was free. So why did she feel so hollow? The answer came the next morning during her first therapy session with Dr. Mitchell. "You spent 6 years being told you were worthless," Dr. Mitchell said. They sat in a comfortable office with soft lighting and furniture that didn't feel clinical. That becomes your internal narrative. Even when external circumstances change, the voice remains. How do I make it stop? You don't. Not completely, but you learn to recognize it as Mark's voice, not yours. You learn to question it, challenge it, replace it with evidence to the contrary. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. It's a process, Lena. One you've already started by leaving him and testifying. But the work doesn't end just because he's in prison. They spent an hour talking about trauma responses, about hypervigilance and triggers, about the difference between being safe and feeling safe. Dr. Mitchell gave Lena homework, journaling prompts, breathing exercises, a list of affirmations that felt stupid but apparently worked. "I want to see you twice a week for the first month," Dr. Mitchell said at the end. "We have a lot to unpack and consistency helps." Lena agreed, and over the next few weeks, therapy became a regular part of her routine. Some sessions were brutal, confronting memories she'd buried, crying until her eyes were swollen, facing truths about herself she'd avoided. Other sessions were lighter, focusing on building coping skills and identifying her strengths. Dr. Mitchell was particularly interested in Lena's relationship with Roman. "You said he's never made you feel obligated or pressured," Dr. Mitchell noted during their 4th session. "That's significant. How does it feel to be around someone who respects your boundaries?" "Strange," Lena admitted. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to demand something in return for everything he's done." Has he given you any indication he will? No, but Mark didn't either at first. He was wonderful until we got married. Then everything changed. That's a valid concern based on your experience. But Roman isn't Mark. They're two different people who've shown you two different patterns of behavior. Dr. Mitchell made a note. Has Roman ever raised his voice at you? Lena thought about it. No. Ever touched you without permission? Never. Ever made decisions for you without asking? He asks about everything. It's almost annoying. Dr. Mitchell smiled. That's what respect looks like, Lena. I know it feels unfamiliar, but that's because you've been conditioned to expect control disguised as care. Roman's showing you what actual care looks like. The conversation stayed with Lena for days. She started paying attention to the small ways Roman showed respect, asking before entering a room, offering choices instead of directives, backing off immediately when she said no. Things that should have been basic human decency, but felt revolutionary after years of Mark. One evening, about a month after the trial, Roman found her in the library struggling through an enrollment application for the community college. "How's it going?" he asked. "I can't figure out the financial aid section. They want tax returns from last year, but Mark handled all that, and I have no idea where anything is." Lena threw her pen down in frustration. "I can't even apply to school without him screwing it up." "May I?" Roman gestured to the laptop. Lena slid it toward him, and he spent several minutes reviewing the application. "The records are on file with the IRS. I can have my accountant request copies. You'll need to file separately this year anyway since you're divorced." He made a note on his phone. "What else do you need?" "Proof of residency, but I don't technically live anywhere. I mean, I live here, but that's not permanent." Roman looked up. "It could be." "What?" "You could stay. Not in the medical wing. There's a guest house on the property that's never used. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, your own space. You could live there while you're in school." Lena's first instinct was to refuse. She'd been imposing for too long already, but something made her pause. "Why would you offer that?" "Because you need stability right now, and moving into some apartment alone seems counterproductive when there's space here. Because I like having you around." Roman's expression was carefully neutral. "And because I think you'd benefit from not having to worry about rent and utilities while you're trying to rebuild your life." "I can't just live here for free." "You're not living for free. You're accepting help from someone who has resources and wants to share them. There's a difference." Lena chewed her lip, thinking. The guest house would give her independence while maintaining safety. She could focus on school without financial stress. And if she was being honest with herself, the thought of leaving the estate, leaving Roman, made her chest tight. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." She thought about it for 3 days, discussed it in therapy, made a pros and cons list that didn't help at all. Finally, she walked to the guest house, a small cottage near the garden that she'd never noticed before, and stood outside trying to imagine living there. The door opened and Roman appeared, looking surprised. "Sorry, I was just having maintenance clean it out in case you decided yes." He stepped aside. "Want to look around?" The inside was charming. Hardwood floors, big windows, furniture that managed to be comfortable without being shabby. The kitchen was small but functional. The bedrooms were cozy. Everything was clean and bright and felt safe. "I could see myself here," Lena said quietly. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes." Roman smiled, and Lena realized it was the first time she'd seen him look genuinely happy rather than just satisfied. She moved into the guest house the following weekend. It took about 20 minutes because she owned almost nothing. Clothes Roman had bought her, a few books, toiletries. Everything from her old life with Mark had been left behind deliberately. "We should fix that," Maria said, surveying the sparse space. "You need dishes and sheets and towels and all the things that make a house a home." They spent an afternoon shopping, Lena's first time out in public without security hovering. Maria drove her to a department store and helped her pick out essentials, vetoing Lena's instinct to buy the cheapest option every time. "You're not poor," Maria said firmly. "You're rebuilding. There's a difference. Buy things that will last." Lena ended up with dishes that matched, sheets with an actual thread count, towels that felt like clouds, small luxuries that felt almost shameful until Maria reminded her she deserved nice things. That night, Lena cooked her first meal in her new kitchen, nothing fancy, just pasta and sauce, and ate alone at her own table in her own space. It should have felt lonely. Instead, It felt like freedom. Roman stopped by the next evening with a housewarming gift, a small potted plant. I'm terrible at keeping things alive, Lena warned. It's a succulent, nearly impossible to kill, perfect for beginners. He set it on the windowsill. How are you settling in? It's strange. Good strange. Lena gestured around the cottage. I've never lived alone before. Went from my parents' house to Mark's apartment to here. You're not completely alone. I'm 100 yards away if you need anything. That's part of what makes it feel safe, I think. Independence, but not isolation. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Roman said, I have to go to Chicago next week. Business meetings. I'll be gone 3 days. Lena's stomach dropped, which was ridiculous. She was a grown woman. She'd be fine for 3 days. Okay, she said, keeping her voice level. Security will still be here, Maria too. And you have my number if anything comes up. Roman hesitated. But if you'd rather I didn't go, no, that's stupid. Go. I'll be fine. You don't sound fine, Lena sighed. I'm being ridiculous. It's just the first time you won't be nearby since everything happened. But I need to get used to that. You have a life. You can't put it on hold forever because I'm nervous. What if I brought you with me? To Chicago? To Chicago. Separate hotel rooms, no pressure, just a change of scenery. You could explore the city while I'm in meetings. We could have dinner in the evenings. Consider it a practice run for being independent in a controlled environment. The offer was tempting. Too tempting. Lena felt herself leaning toward yes and forced herself to pause. Can I think about it? Of course. Let me know by Friday. After he left, Lena called Dr. Mitchell, even though it wasn't a scheduled session day. Sorry for bothering you, Lena said when the therapist answered. But I need to talk through something. That's what I'm here for. What's going on? Lena explained the Chicago offer, her conflicting feelings about it, the fear of being too dependent on Roman's presence. What do you want to do? Dr. Mitchell asked. I want to go, but I'm worried that wanting to go means I'm relying on him too much, that I'm replacing one codependent relationship with another. Codependency is about needing someone to function, about losing yourself in them, about making their needs your identity. Is that what's happening here? Lena thought about it honestly. No. Roman has never asked me to prioritize his needs. He doesn't even tell me what his needs are most of the time. So maybe this isn't codependency. Maybe it's just enjoying someone's company and wanting to spend time with them. That's allowed, Lena. Healthy relationships involve wanting to be around the other person. But we're not in a relationship. Aren't you? You live on his property, eat meals together, talk every day, enjoy each other's company. That's a relationship. It might not be romantic or sexual, but it's definitely a relationship. The words sat heavy in Lena's chest. A relationship. When had that happened? When had Roman become someone whose absence made her feel untethered? What if it becomes romantic? Lena asked quietly. What if I develop feelings for him? Would that be the worst thing? He's a crime boss. He's killed people. He lives in a world I don't understand and can never be part of. Those are all true statements, but they don't answer my question. Would having feelings for him be the worst thing? Lena closed her eyes. No, the worst thing would be having feelings for someone who reminds me of Mark. Roman is nothing like Mark. He's patient and kind and respectful. He makes me feel safe and valued and capable. If I'm going to have feelings for someone, he'd be a pretty good choice. Then maybe the question isn't whether you should have feelings, but what you want to do about them if you do. They talked for another 20 minutes before Lena felt settled enough to hang up. She sat in her cottage looking at the succulent on the windowsill and made a decision. She texted Roman, I'll go to Chicago with you. His response came immediately. Good, I'll make the arrangements. The trip was 5 days away, which gave Lena just enough time to panic about what it meant and whether she was making a mistake. But underneath the panic was something else. Excitement. Anticipation. The feeling of moving forward instead of staying frozen. Maria helped her shop for appropriate clothes. Chicago in October meant layers, and everything Lena owned was either diner uniforms or the basics Roman had bought her months ago. You need a proper coat, Maria declared, pulling a wool blend off the rack. And boots that aren't falling apart, and at least one nice outfit for dinners. Lena tried to pay attention to prices, but Maria kept steering her toward quality over cost. Mr. Viscari gave me a budget. Use it. He's spending too much on me. He's spending money he has on someone he cares about. Let him. Maria held up a deep green sweater. This would look beautiful on you. They left with bags full of clothes that made Lena feel like an actual person rather than someone just surviving. That night, she tried everything on again in her cottage, practicing outfits, feeling almost giddy. A knock interrupted her fashion show. She opened the door to find Roman holding takeout bags. "Thought you might be hungry," he said. "Maria told me you've been shopping all day." They ate at her small kitchen table. Thai food again, which had become their unspoken tradition. Roman asked about her therapy sessions, her college application, the book she was reading. Normal conversation that felt monumental in its normalcy. "I'm nervous about Chicago," Lena admitted over pad Thai. "Why?" "I don't know how to act around you when we're not here. The estate feels safe because it's controlled. Out there, I have to figure out who we are to each other." Roman set down his fork. "We're friends, Lena. That's all we need to be." "Are we? Friends?" "I'd like to think so, unless you prefer a different term." Lena considered this. Friends didn't quite capture it. The way her heart rate picked up when he walked into a room, the way she found excuses to spend time near him, the way his absence would leave a hole she didn't want to examine too closely. "Friends works," she lied. Roman studied her with those dark, perceptive eyes that always seemed to see too much. "Lena, if you want to talk about what this is between us—" "I don't." The words came out too fast. "I'm not ready. I might never be ready, and I don't want to ruin what we have by making it complicated." "Fair enough." Roman stood and started clearing dishes. "But for what it's worth, I don't think anything between us could be ruined. We've already been through too much for that." After he left, Lena lay in bed replaying the conversation. She'd lied to him. Twice. Once about the friends thing, once about not wanting to talk about their relationship. The truth was, she thought about it constantly. Wondered what it would be like to kiss him, to be held by him, to let herself fall completely for someone who might actually catch her. But wanting and allowing herself to have were two different things. She'd learned that lesson thoroughly. Chicago arrived faster than expected. They flew private, Roman's jet, which felt surreal, and Lena spent the flight trying not to gawk at the luxury. Leather seats, actual meals served by an attendant, views that made commercial flying look like a punishment. "You're staring," Roman observed with amusement. "I've never seen anything like this." "You'll get used to it." "Will I? Because this seems like something I should never get used to." They landed in Chicago around noon and drove to a hotel that was somehow even more impressive than the plane. The lobby looked like an art gallery. Their rooms were on the top floor with views of the entire city. "I have meetings until 6, Roman said as they rode the elevator up. "Dinner at 7? "Sounds good. What should I do until then?" "Explore, shop, relax, whatever you want." He handed her a credit card. "Use this if you need anything." Lena stared at the black card with Roman's name embossed on it. "I can't take your credit card. It's a travel expense card, not my personal account. Use it for meals, transportation, whatever." He pressed it into her hand. "Please, Lena, let me do this without making it a negotiation." So Lena spent the afternoon wandering Chicago, using Roman's card for lunch at a cafe and admission to the Art Institute. She got lost twice, which felt adventurous rather than scary because she knew she could call Roman and he'd fix it. By 6, she was back at the hotel, exhausted and exhilarated. She showered, changed into the green sweater Maria had picked out, and met Roman in the lobby at 7 sharp. He'd changed too, different suit, no tie, looking relaxed in a way he rarely did at home. "How were the meetings?" Lena asked. "Productive. How was your day?" "I got lost in Millennium Park, and a stranger gave me directions. Then I spent 2 hours in an art museum. It was perfect." They went to dinner at a restaurant that didn't have prices on the menu, which Lena had learned meant expensive. The food was incredible. Tiny portions that were somehow filling, flavors she'd never experienced, wine that didn't come from a box. Over dessert, Roman said, "You look happy." "I am happy. Isn't that strange? 6 months ago I was locked in a bathroom bleeding, and now I'm in Chicago eating chocolate mousse with a crime boss. Life is weird." "It is. But good weird?" "Definitely good weird." Lena took another bite of mousse. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Always." "Why aren't you married?"
Real answer this time, not the deflection you gave before.
Roman was quiet for a long moment.
Because everyone I've ever dated wanted either my money or my power.
They saw Roman Viscari, the crime boss, not Roman the person. And the ones who claimed to love me anyway were lying to themselves about what my life actually entails. What does it entail? Violence when necessary, moral ambiguity on a daily basis, the knowledge that I've hurt people who probably didn't deserve it and helped people who definitely didn't, enemies who would happily kill anyone close to me just to prove a point. Roman met her eyes. Not exactly romance novel material. No, Lena agreed, but you're more than your worst choices. Everyone is. That's generous. It's true. You saved my life. You've been patient and kind and respectful when you had no reason to be. You've never made me feel like I owe you anything. Those things matter more than whatever else you've done. Roman reached across the table, stopped just short of touching her hand. Can I ask you something personal? Turnabout's fair play. Are you happy here? In this cottage on the estate with me around, or are you just comfortable because it's safe? Lena considered lying, decided against it. Both. I'm happy and comfortable and safe. But I'm also terrified that I'm getting too comfortable, that I'm building a life that depends on your generosity, and what happens when that runs out? It won't run out. You can't promise that. People change. Circumstances change. What if you meet someone you actually want to marry? She's not going to want your ex-charity case living in the guest house. First, you're not a charity case. Second, any woman who couldn't handle me helping someone who needed it isn't someone I'd want to marry. Roman's voice was firm. And third, you're not going to be in that cottage forever. You're going to finish school, get a job, build an independent life. I'm just providing a stable foundation while you do it. And after, when I don't need the foundation anymore, then you'll have a friend with a guest house you're always welcome to visit. The word friend stung more than it should have. Lena forced a smile. Right, friends. They finished dessert and walked back to the hotel through streets alive with nightlife. Chicago felt electric, full of possibility, and Lena wished she could freeze this moment, walking beside Roman, full of good food and wine, feeling capable and strong and almost whole. At the hotel, they rode the elevator in silence. When they reached their floor, Roman walked her to her door. Thank you for today, Lena said, for bringing me here, for everything. You don't need to thank me. I know, but I want to. They stood in the hallway, and something shifted in the air between them. Roman's eyes dropped to her lips for just a second before he looked away. Good night, Lena. Good night. She went inside and leaned against the closed door, heart pounding. He'd almost kissed her. She'd seen it in his eyes, the moment of want before he'd controlled it, and she'd wanted him to. Desperately, completely, without reservation. Lena texted Dr. Mitchell, even though it was late. I think I have feelings for Roman. What do I do? The response came 10 minutes later. What do you want to do? That was always the question. What did Lena want, independent of fear or obligation or other people's expectations? The answer terrified her, but it was simple. She wanted to take a chance on something real. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in the hotel bed watching city lights paint patterns on the ceiling, replaying that moment in the hallway when Roman had looked at her like she was something precious and terrifying at the same time. Dr. Mitchell's question echoed in her head. What do you want to do? The answer should have been complicated, should have involved careful analysis of power dynamics and trauma responses and whether she was confusing safety with love. But lying there in the dark, Lena realized the answer was actually simple. She wanted to stop being afraid of wanting things. The next morning, Roman knocked on her door at 8 with coffee and pastries from the hotel bakery. Thought you might want breakfast before I disappear into meetings again, he said. They ate on her room's small balcony overlooking the Chicago skyline. The October air was crisp, and Lena wrapped herself in the hotel robe, holding her coffee cup like a heat source. I've been thinking about what you asked last night, Lena said, about whether I'm happy or just comfortable. Roman set down his pastry. And? I'm both, but I'm also something else. She forced herself to meet his eyes. I'm falling for you. Maybe already fell. I don't know when it happened, but it did, and I'm terrified because the last time I trusted someone with my heart, he spent 6 years destroying me. Roman went very still. Lena, let me finish, please. She gripped her coffee cup tighter. I know this is complicated. I know I'm probably confusing gratitude with feelings. I know you're a crime boss and I'm a mess of a person who can barely function without therapy twice a week. But I also know that when you're around, I feel like I can breathe. And when you're not, there's this empty space that nothing else fills. The silence stretched between them, and Lena watched Roman's face cycle through emotions too quickly to identify. I need to tell you something, he said finally. Something I should have told you months ago. Lena's stomach dropped. Here it came. The revelation that would ruin everything. He was married. He was dying. He'd only helped her to ease his conscience about other terrible things he'd done. The night I came to the diner and gave you that card, Roman continued, I wasn't there by accident. I'd received intelligence that Mark Hart was escalating, that his violence was getting worse, and someone was going to end up dead. I went to verify it myself, and I saw you. You were investigating Mark? One of his drinking buddies owed money to an organization I do business with. During collection, the guy mentioned his friend was handling his wife problem. We looked into it. Roman's jaw tightened. I saw the pattern, escalating abuse, trips to the ER, police reports that went nowhere. And I saw you, trying to be invisible while your husband was at home getting drunk, so I gave you an exit strategy. Lena processed this. You sought me out specifically. Yes. Why? Because I could help, and you needed help, and I was tired of standing by while bad men hurt people I had the power to protect. Roman turned to face her fully. But that's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that I saw you and something shifted. You were terrified, but serving coffee with steady hands. Broken, but still showing up. And I thought, this person deserves better than what she's getting. So this has been what? A rescue mission? At first, yes. But then you called and I brought you to the estate and you started healing. And somewhere in there I stopped seeing you as someone who needed saving and started seeing you as someone I wanted in my life. Roman's voice dropped. I have feelings for you too, Lena. Have had them for months. But I didn't say anything because you needed space to figure out who you were without a man defining you. Lena's chest felt too full. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know the truth before this goes any further. Roman stood, paced to the balcony railing. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you run if you knew the details. But with you, I want to be better. And that terrifies me because wanting to be better means admitting I've been something less than that. Join the club. We're all something less than we wish we were. Lena stood too, moved to stand beside him. Roman, I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for honest. For someone who sees me as a whole person instead of something to control or fix. And you've been that from the beginning. Even knowing I manipulated the situation that brought you here, you gave me a choice. That's not manipulation. That's providing options I didn't have before. She hesitated, then reached for his hand, the first time she'd initiated physical contact. Mark took away my choices. You gave them back. There's a difference. Roman looked down at their joined hands like he'd never seen anything more miraculous. Slowly, carefully, he laced his fingers through hers. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I've had relationships, but nothing that mattered. Nothing where I actually cared if they stayed or left. I don't know how to do this either. My only relationship was with someone who hurt me. Lena squeezed his hand. So maybe we figure it out together. Make mistakes, fix them, try again. That simple? Probably not. But we can start there. They stood on the balcony holding hands while Chicago woke up below them. And for the first time in her life, Lena felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The rest of the Chicago trip felt different. They still maintained separate rooms, still kept a respectful distance in public, but something had shifted. Roman reached for her hand when they walked through museums. Lena leaned against his shoulder in the car. Small touches that felt monumental. On their last night, they had dinner at a quiet Italian place that felt more intimate than expensive. Roman ordered in flawless Italian, making the waiter laugh at something Lena didn't understand. I didn't know you spoke Italian, she said after the waiter left. My grandmother was from Sicily. She refused to speak English at home. Roman poured wine for both of them. I spent summers there as a kid before everything went bad with my father. Do you still have family there? Distant cousins I haven't seen in 20 years. We exchange Christmas cards, but that's it. He swirled his wine.
My grandmother died when I was 16. After that, there wasn't much reason to go back. Do you miss it, Sicily? Sometimes. The food, definitely. The pace of life. Everything moves slower there, like time isn't chasing you. Roman smiled slightly. Maybe I'll take you someday. Show you where I learned to make proper pasta. You cook? I'm Sicilian. Of course I cook. Maria won't let me near her kitchen because I reorganize everything, but I'm decent with a pan. Lena tried to imagine Roman Vescari, crime boss, killer, man who commanded respect through fear, making pasta in a kitchen. The image shouldn't have worked, but it did. I'd like that, she said. Sicily, I mean. Someday when I'm not still figuring out how to exist as a person. You're already existing as a person, a remarkable one. I'm a mess held together by therapy and your patience. You're a survivor who's rebuilding from nothing. That takes more strength than most people have. Roman reached across the table, and this time he did touch her hand. I see you, Lena. Not the broken parts you think define you. I see someone brave and stubborn and stronger than she knows. Lena felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them away. Stop being so nice to me. I don't know how to handle it. Get used to it. I don't plan on stopping. They flew back the next morning, and reality came crashing back as soon as they landed. Maria had news. Mark's sentencing hearing was scheduled for the following week, and Patricia wanted to prep Lena for a victim impact statement. What's that? Lena asked. It's your chance to tell the judge how his actions affected you, Patricia explained over the phone. It doesn't change the verdict, but it can influence sentencing. And honestly, I think the judge would benefit from hearing directly from you. Lena agreed and spent the next week working with Patricia to craft a statement that was honest without being melodramatic. Dr. Mitchell helped too, pointing out places where Lena was minimizing Mark's impact or trying to sound tougher than she felt. You don't have to be strong in that courtroom, Dr. Mitchell said. You can be honest about how badly he hurt you. That's not weakness, that's truth. The day of sentencing, Lena wore a simple dress that Maria had helped her pick out. Not too formal, not too casual. The kind of outfit that said survivor without screaming victim. Roman drove her to the courthouse, but he didn't come inside. This is your moment, he said. You don't need me hovering. I want you there. Are you sure? Because I can wait in the car if you'd rather. Roman, I'm sure. Please come with me. So he did, sitting in the gallery while Lena took the stand for what she hoped was the last time. The courtroom was less crowded than during the trial. Just lawyers, Mark in his orange jumpsuit, a few reporters, and the judge. Mark wouldn't meet her eyes. Good. The judge asked if she was ready, and Lena nodded. She pulled out the statement she and Patricia had prepared, but when she started reading, the words felt wrong. Too polished, too distant from what she actually wanted to say. So she set the paper down and spoke from her heart instead. 6 years ago, I married a man who I thought would keep me safe. My parents had just died, and I was alone and grieving, and Mark seemed like an answer. He was stable. He had a job. He wanted to take care of me. Lena paused, gathering courage. But taking care of me turned into controlling me. And controlling me turned into hurting me. And hurting me turned into breaking me down until I believed I deserved it. She looked at Mark then, forcing herself to see him as he actually was. Smaller than she remembered, pathetic in his prison clothes, stripped of the power he'd wielded through fear. He broke my arm so badly I needed surgery. He gave me concussions. He cracked my ribs, split my lip, left bruises I had to cover with makeup because I was too ashamed to let anyone see. Lena's voice stayed steady. But the physical injuries healed. The psychological damage is going to take years to undo. Maybe a lifetime. Because he didn't just hurt my body. He tried to destroy my sense of self. He made me believe I was worthless, that I deserved the abuse, that no one else would ever want me. The courtroom was silent except for Lena's voice. I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I'm here to tell you that Mark Hart is dangerous, not because he's particularly clever or powerful, but because he's a coward who targets people who can't fight back. And if given the chance, he'll do it again. Maybe not to me. I'm protected now, but to someone else. Some other woman who's vulnerable and alone and desperate for someone to care about her. Lena turned to address the judge directly. So I'm asking you to give him the maximum sentence allowed by law, not for revenge, but for protection. For every woman who might cross his path in the future and end up where I was, bleeding in a bathroom, calling a stranger because her own husband was going to kill her. She sat down, hands shaking,
and Patricia squeezed her shoulder. The judge took off his glasses, cleaned them slowly, then addressed Mark. Mr. Hart, I've presided over hundreds of domestic violence cases in my career. Some defendants show remorse. Some claim they've changed. Some apologize. The judge's voice was cold. You've shown none of those things. During this entire process, you've maintained that you're the victim, that your ex-wife is lying, that she's been manipulated by powerful men into destroying your reputation. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm. I don't care what you have to say, the judge continued, because I've seen the evidence. I've heard the testimony. I've watched you threaten Ms. Hart in my courtroom, and I've concluded that you are exactly what she described, a dangerous coward who will hurt again if given the opportunity. The judge put his glasses back on. Therefore, I'm sentencing you to the maximum allowed by law, 8 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for the first 4. Upon release, you'll be required to register as a domestic violence offender, complete an anger management program, and maintain absolute no contact with Ms. Hart for the rest of your natural life. If you violate any of these conditions, you'll serve an additional 5 years.
Mark exploded. 8 years? For what? She's lying. She's a lying whore who... Bailiff, remove the defendant and add another 6 months for contempt of court. The judge's gavel came down. We're done here. They dragged Mark out, screaming threats that nobody listened to, and Lena sat frozen, processing what had just happened. 8 years. He'd be in prison for 8 years. Patricia was grinning. That was perfect. Your statement, the judge's reaction, everything. You did good, Lena.
Outside, reporters tried to swarm them, but Roman security created a corridor to the car. They drove back to the estate in silence, and Lena stared out the window, feeling nothing and everything. Are you okay? Roman asked quietly. I don't know. I should feel relieved, right? Or victorious, but I just feel empty. That's normal. You've been building toward this moment for months. Now that it's done, you have to figure out what comes next. What does come next? Roman pulled through the estate gates and parked in front of the guest house. Whatever you want. That's the whole point. Over the next few weeks, Lena discovered what she wanted included a lot of things she'd never allowed herself to imagine. She enrolled in community college for the spring semester, majoring in education. She continued therapy twice a week, working through trauma that ran deeper than she'd realized. She started volunteering at a women's shelter on weekends, talking to survivors who reminded her of herself 6 months ago. And she spent time with Roman, actual dates, not just dinners at the estate. They went to movies and concerts and museums. They walked through parks and ate at diners worse than Sal's, just because Lena wanted the experience. Roman taught her to cook proper Italian food in Maria's kitchen, and Lena taught him that not everything needed to be perfect to be good. It wasn't always easy. Lena still had nightmares where Mark found her, still flinched at loud noises, still struggled with believing she deserved good things. And Roman still carried the weight of his work, came home some nights looking haunted, unable to talk about what he'd done that day. But they were honest about the struggles. Lena learned to tell Roman when she needed space, and he learned to tell her when his work got too dark. They went to therapy, separately at first, then together, when Dr. Mitchell suggested it might help them navigate the relationship better. You're both carrying significant trauma, Dr. Mitchell said during one joint session. Roman from childhood, Lena from your marriage. That trauma will affect how you relate to each other. The key is recognizing when you're reacting from past hurt versus present reality. It was good advice, if hard to follow. Lena caught herself sometimes assuming Roman would get angry if she disagreed with him, only to realize he actually appreciated her opinions. And Roman admitted he sometimes pulled away emotionally because intimacy felt dangerous, even though Lena had never given him reason to fear it. 6 months after the trial, Lena moved out of the guest house. Not because things with Roman weren't working, they were, but because Dr. Mitchell had pushed her to consider whether she could stand on her own before fully committing to a relationship. You need to know you can survive without him, Dr. Mitchell said. Not because you will have to, but because that knowledge is power. You need to prove to yourself that you're choosing him, not needing him. So Lena rented a small apartment near campus, furnished it with her own things, and lived alone for the first time in her life. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. She burned dinner and forgot to buy toilet paper and left dishes in the sink for 3 days. She also stayed up until 2 in the morning reading textbooks, painted her bedroom walls purple just because she could, and learned that loneliness and solitude were completely different things. Roman visited often, but never stayed the night unless invited, respected her space in ways that still surprised her. And slowly, Lena learned that she was okay on her own, not just surviving, but actually living. The semester started, and Lena discovered she loved being back in school. Her professors were passionate, her classmates were engaged, and for the first time in years, Lena felt like her brain was actually being used for something other than survival calculations. She made friends, carefully, because trusting people was still hard. But there was Casey from her educational psychology class, who made her laugh until she couldn't breathe, and Professor Martinez, who told her she had a gift for connecting with struggling students and should consider specializing in special education. "You've lived through hard things," Professor Martinez said after Lena stayed late to discuss a paper. "That gives you empathy most teachers never develop. Don't waste it." Lena started thinking about a future beyond just finishing her degree. Maybe a master's program. Maybe working with kids who came from broken homes and needed someone who understood. Maybe making a difference in ways that transformed her own pain into something useful. One evening, about a year after the trial, Lena met Roman for dinner at the Italian place where he'd first told her he had feelings for her. They'd been back several times since, and the staff knew them by name now. "I got something in the mail today," Lena said over wine. "An invitation to speak at a conference about domestic violence survival." "Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. It feels big. Standing in front of hundreds of people and talking about Mark, about what happened, about getting out. But maybe it's important. Maybe someone in that audience needs to hear that it's possible to leave, that there's life after abuse." Lena twisted her napkin. "What do you think?" "I think you'll make the right choice either way, but I also think you have a story worth sharing." Lena decided to do it. The conference was 2 months away, which gave her time to prepare with Dr. Mitchell and Patricia, who'd agreed to appear on a panel about the legal aspects of domestic violence cases. The night before the conference, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in her apartment bed, her bed, in her space, that she paid for with her own money from the part-time job she'd gotten at the campus bookstore, and thought about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been testifying against Mark, still half broken, barely holding herself together. Now she was about to stand on a stage and talk about survival as something she'd actually achieved rather than something she was still fighting for. Her phone buzzed with a text from Roman. "You're going to be amazing tomorrow, but if you need me there, I can cancel my meetings." She texted back, "I need to do this alone, but thank you for offering." His response came immediately. "Proud of you, always." The conference was held at a downtown hotel, and the room was packed with survivors, advocates, social workers, and people who worked in the system that had failed Lena so thoroughly. She waited backstage while other speakers went before her, each one telling variations of the same story: trapped, hurt, escaped, rebuilt. Then it was her turn. Lena walked onto the stage, stood behind the podium, and looked out at 300 faces. She'd prepared notes, but like at Mark's sentencing, they felt wrong. So she told her story. Not the sanitized version, not the one designed to make people comfortable. She told them about being locked in a bathroom with a broken arm, about calling a crime boss because the legitimate systems had abandoned her, about the shame and fear and slow, painful work of healing. "I'm not here to tell you there's a right way to leave," Lena said, "because there isn't. Some people leave with the help of shelters and social workers. Some people leave with the help of family. Some people, like me, leave with the help of someone morally questionable who happened to have the resources and will to actually help." She saw people shifting uncomfortably at that. Good. The point isn't how you leave. The point is that you do leave, however you can, with whatever help you can find. Because staying kills you. Maybe not physically, though it might, but it kills your spirit, your sense of self, your ability to imagine a future where you're more than someone's punching bag. Lena gripped the podium. And here's what nobody tells you about after you leave. It doesn't get magically better. You don't wake up one day healed and whole and ready to move on. You wake up with nightmares. You flinch at loud noises. You struggle to trust anyone, including yourself. Healing is slow and hard and sometimes feels impossible. She paused, looking around the room at nodding heads and teary eyes. But it's worth it. Every therapy session, every nightmare, every moment of doubt, it's worth it. Because on the other side of all that pain is a life where you get to make choices, where you get to want things and pursue them, where you're a whole person, not someone's property. The applause when she finished was thunderous. People stood. Strangers approached afterward to hug her and thank her and tell her their own stories. Lena listened to each one, gave her email to survivors who wanted to talk more, and felt something settle in her chest. This was what she was supposed to do. Not just survive, but help others survive too. After the conference, Lena threw herself into advocacy work. She joined the board of the women's shelter where she volunteered. She started a support group specifically for domestic violence survivors. She worked with Patricia to push for better training for police officers responding to domestic violence calls. And she continued building her life. Finished her bachelor's degree with honors, got accepted to a master's program, started student teaching at an elementary school where half the kids came from situations that broke her heart. Roman was there through all of it, steady and supportive, but never hovering. He came to her graduation, met her friends, donated anonymously to the shelter so they could expand their services. When Lena needed space, he gave it. When she needed someone to lean on, he was there. 2 years after Mark's trial, Lena ran into Sal at a grocery store. He looked older, but his smile was the same. Lena Hart. Or is it still Hart? Just Lena now. Changed it back to my maiden name. She hugged him. How's the diner? Same as always. Coffee's still terrible, tips are still worse. Sal studied her. You look good. Healthy. I am. I'm teaching now, 2nd grade. I always thought you'd be good at that. Sal hesitated. I'm sorry I didn't do more. When you were working for me and he was hurting you, I knew, and I didn't do enough. You did what you could. You gave me flexible hours and didn't ask questions. That mattered. Still, I should have... Sal, you can't save everyone. I barely saved myself. Lena squeezed his arm. But thank you for caring. That meant more than you know. They exchanged numbers and promised to keep in touch, and Lena walked away feeling like she'd closed another chapter. That night she had dinner with Roman at her apartment. She'd cooked, which still amazed her. They ate pasta that wasn't quite as good as his, but was edible, and Lena told him about running into Sal. Do you think about it much anymore? Roman asked. That time in your life? Less than I used to. It's like it happened to a different person. Lena poured more wine. I'm not that woman anymore. I'm someone who chose to become someone else. You didn't become someone else. You became who you were always supposed to be. Maybe. Or maybe we're all just making it up as we go, trying to be slightly better than we were yesterday. Roman smiled. That's very philosophical for a Tuesday night. Blame Professor Martinez. She's got me reading existentialism. They did dishes together, moving around the small kitchen in comfortable synchronization. When they were done, Roman pulled her close and Lena let herself relax into his embrace. I love you, he said quietly. Not the first time, they'd been saying it for months, but it still made her chest feel full. I love you too, even though you're a crime boss and possibly going to hell. Definitely going to hell, but at least the company will be interesting. 3 years after the night Lena called Roman from that bathroom, Mark was released on parole. Lena found out through Patricia, who called to let her know he'd been paroled to a different city 300 miles away. He's required to check in with his parole officer weekly, maintain employment, and absolutely no contact with you, Patricia said. If he violates any conditions, he goes back to prison. Do you think he will? Violate them? Honestly, yes. Men like Mark don't change, but he's being monitored closely, and if he so much as looks at a computer to search for you, we'll know. Lena thanked her and hung up, waiting for the fear to hit. But it didn't. Mark was out there somewhere, but he felt like a distant storm, threatening but not immediate. She told Roman that night over dinner at the estate. They'd fallen back into the habit of eating there several times a week, and Maria always made too much food. How do you feel about it? Roman asked. Strangely okay? I know I should be scared, but I'm not. He doesn't have power over me anymore. Lena cut into her chicken. And if he's stupid enough to try something, well, you have people, right? I have people, but you won't need them. Mark's smart enough to know that coming after you means coming after me, and that's a losing proposition. Sometimes I forget you're terrifying. Good. That means you feel safe. 6 months later, Lena got word through Patricia that Mark had been arrested for violating parole. Got drunk, got in a fight, assaulted someone. He was back in prison, this time with no possibility of early release. That's it then, Lena said when Patricia told her. He's gone for good. Looks that way. Even if he gets out eventually, he'll be an old man with a record that makes him unemployable. He's not a threat anymore. Lena should have felt something. Relief, vindication, something. Instead, she just felt done. Mark was a chapter that had closed so thoroughly she could barely remember the details. That summer, Roman asked her to move back to the estate. Not the guest house, he clarified. The main house. With me. They were sitting in her apartment, and Lena set down her coffee carefully. That's a big step. I know, and if you're not ready, that's fine, but we've been together for 3 years. We're both stable, healthy, actually functioning adults. And I'd like to wake up next to you more than twice a week. What about your work? I can't be involved in that. You won't be. I keep that part of my life completely separate. Roman took her hand. I'm not asking you to be a crime boss's girlfriend in public. I'm asking you to be my partner in private. The woman I come home to. The person who makes me want to be better than I am. Lena thought about it for 3 days, discussed it in therapy, made another pros and cons list. In the end, the decision was easy. She moved into the main house in September, bringing her purple-painted furniture and her growing book collection and her plants that she'd somehow kept alive. Maria helped her settle in, and within a week it felt like she'd always been there. Lena finished her master's degree that spring and got hired full-time at the elementary school where she'd been student teaching. She started each morning in Roman's kitchen, making coffee while he read the news, then drove to work where she spent her days teaching second graders to read and count and believe in themselves. Some of her students came from broken homes. She recognized the signs, the flinching, the hypervigilance, the desperate need to please. And she made sure those kids knew that whatever was happening at home, it wasn't their fault. That they deserved safety and kindness and a future that looked nothing like their present. One afternoon, a little girl named Sophie stayed after class crying because her mom's boyfriend had grabbed her arm and left bruises. Lena sat with her, documented the injuries, called Child Protective Services, and stayed until Sophie's grandmother came to pick her up. After they left, Lena sat in her empty classroom and cried. For Sophie, for herself at that age, for every person who'd ever felt powerless against someone bigger and meaner. She told Roman about it that night, and he listened without trying to fix it or minimize it or make it about him. You made a difference for that kid today, he said. She's going to remember the teacher who believed her and helped her. That matters. I just don't want her to end up like me, scared and broken and spending her 20s just trying to survive. She won't. Because she has you now, showing her what strong looks like. Showing her that survival isn't the end goal, living is. 5 years after that phone call from a locked bathroom, Lena stood in her classroom on the last day of school, watching her students pack up their belongings and chatter about summer plans. She'd taught some of these kids to read, had watched them go from struggling to soaring, had given them tools they'd carry forever. One student, Marcus, who'd started the year barely able to write his name, handed her a drawing. It showed a woman with dark hair standing in front of a classroom, and the words, "Best teacher ever," written in crayon. This is beautiful, Marcus, thank you. My mom says you saved me, that I was going to fail second grade, but you didn't let me. Marcus grinned, missing a front tooth. So you're my hero. After the kids left, Lena sat at her desk holding that drawing and thinking about heroes. She wasn't one. She'd just done her job. But maybe that was the point. Maybe heroes weren't people who did extraordinary things. Maybe they were just people who showed up, did the work, and refused to let others fall through the cracks. That evening, she came home to find Roman in the garden with a bottle of wine and a blanket spread on the grass. What's this? A celebration. You survived your first year of actual teaching. He poured her a glass. Maria says you've been stressed all week with end-of-year stuff. Figured you needed to decompress. They lay on the blanket watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, and Lena felt something she'd spent most of her life chasing. Contentment. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Helping me? Getting involved in my mess? Never. Not even once. Roman turned to look at her. You changed my life, Lena. Made me remember why I wanted power in the first place, not for myself, but to protect people who needed it. You made me better. You made me believe I could be better too. They stayed there until stars appeared and mosquitoes drove them inside, and Lena thought about the strange path that had led her here. From a bathroom floor covered in her own blood to lying in a garden with a man who loved her without trying to own her. From believing she was worthless to teaching children they were valuable. From surviving to actually living. The next fall, Lena started a nonprofit focused on supporting domestic violence survivors who wanted to go back to school. She called it Second Chapters, and Roman provided the seed funding. They helped women with tuition, childcare, housing stipends, all the things Lena had needed but hadn't had until Roman stepped in. The first year, they helped 12 women. The second year, 25. By the fifth year, Second Chapters was operating in 3 cities and had helped over 200 women rebuild their lives through education. Lena ran it from an office downtown, balancing teaching with advocacy work. Some days she was exhausted, spread too thin, wondering if she could maintain both. Other days she felt like she'd found her calling, helping survivors while also nurturing the next generation. And through it all, Roman was there. Not hovering, not controlling, just present. He came to Second Chapter's fundraisers and school events and therapy appointments when Lena needed him. He gave her space when she needed solitude and comfort when she needed connection. He was, Lena realized, exactly what a partner should be. On the 10-year anniversary of the night she'd called him from that bathroom, Roman took Lena to dinner at a restaurant overlooking the city. They'd been here before. It was where he'd taken her for her birthday the previous year. "I have something for you, Gaukan," Roman said after they'd ordered. He pulled out a small box and Lena's heart jumped. But when she opened it, instead of a ring, she found a key. "What's this?" "Key to a building downtown, 3,000 square feet, perfect for Second Chapters to expand. I bought it last month." Roman smiled at her confusion. "Lena, you've been working out of a cramped office with 2 employees for 5 years. You need room to grow. This gives you that room." Lena stared at the key, then at Roman, then back at the key. "You bought me a building. I bought your organization a building. There's a difference." "Roman, I can't accept that's too much." "It's not too much. It's exactly enough." He closed her fingers around the key. "You've helped hundreds of women rebuild their lives. You've created something meaningful from your pain. You deserve support. Let me support you." Lena felt tears threaten and blinked them away. "Thank you. For this, for everything. For 10 years of being exactly what I needed. I should be thanking you. 10 years ago I was going through the motions. Rich, powerful, empty. You gave me purpose beyond just accumulating more power." They finished dinner and drove to see the building. It was perfect. Open floor plan, plenty of offices, room for classes and workshops and support groups. Lena could already imagine it full of women working toward their degrees, supporting each other, building futures they'd been told they didn't deserve. "I love it," she said, walking through the empty space. "I love you. I love this life we've built. Even though I'm still a crime boss? Especially because you're a crime boss who chooses to use his power for good sometimes." Lena turned to face him. "You're not defined by your worst choices, Roman. None of us are. We're defined by what we do next." That became Lena's philosophy, the one she shared with the women at Second Chapters and the kids in her classroom and anyone who asked how she'd survived. You're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by what you do next. Some women chose to rebuild quietly, getting degrees and jobs and disappearing into normal lives. Others, like Lena, chose to turn their pain into purpose, helping others escape the same situations. Both were valid. Both were brave. Both were choosing to do something next instead of staying frozen in trauma. 15 years after that phone call, Lena stood in front of a room full of Second Chapters graduates, giving a speech at their celebration dinner. 50 women who'd completed their degrees that year, each one a success story, each one proof that leaving was possible and rebuilding was achievable. "I'm not going to tell you it's easy," Lena said, "because it's not. Some of you worked full-time while going to school. Some of you raised kids alone while studying for exams. Some of you had to relearn how to trust people, how to believe in yourselves, how to imagine a future that looked different from your past." She looked around the room at faces she'd come to know over the past few years, women who'd arrived broken and were leaving whole, or at least healing. But you did it. Despite the fear and the doubt and the voices telling you that you couldn't, you did it anyway. And that's the most important thing I can tell you. Keep doing it anyway. Keep choosing to move forward even when it's hard. Keep building the life you deserve even when it feels impossible. Keep being braver than you think you are. The applause was thunderous, and afterward, women lined up to hug Lena and thank her and tell her their plans. One was going to graduate school. Another had gotten a job as a social worker. A third was starting her own business. Each one was doing something next. Each one was refusing to be defined by what had happened to them. Roman found her afterward, looking exhausted and happy. "You did good tonight," he said. "We did good. This doesn't happen without you. This happens because of you. I just wrote checks. You did the actual work." They drove home to the estate, and Lena thought about how strange it was that this place felt like home now. Not the cottage where she'd first lived, not the apartment she'd rented to prove she could stand alone, but here, in this house with this man, building a life she'd never imagined possible. That night, lying in bed with Roman's arm around her, Lena thought about that terrified woman in the bathroom 15 years ago. The one who'd thought she was going to die. The one who'd made a desperate call to a stranger because she had no other options. If Lena could go back and tell her something, it would be this. You're going to survive this. Not just survive, you're going to build a life beyond anything you can imagine right now. You're going to help others. You're going to love and be loved. You're going to wake up one morning and realize you're not scared anymore. It's going to be hard. Some days you'll want to give up. Some nights you'll cry yourself to sleep. Some moments you'll doubt whether you made the right choice. But keep going. Keep choosing to do something next. Keep being braver than you think you are, because the woman you become is worth the fight. Lena fell asleep thinking about the future, about the women she'd help tomorrow, about the kids she'd teach, about the life she'd keep building day by day. Not perfect, never perfect, but hers. Completely, entirely, beautifully hers. And that was more than enough.